Chapter 15. You want to discuss compensation with me? Are you sure you have no problem with your brain? Although he was surprised by Tan Xiu's combat power, Zeta Persei was not frightened by Tan Xiu. Instead, his eyes were fierce, and his face showed a playful smile. Although Tan Xiu showed extremely brilliant combat experience and skills in the battle, Zeta Persei, as an ordinary person, could not see the difference at all. Zeta Persei subconsciously mistook Tan Xiu as a hot-blooded teenager with brute force. I smashed your restaurant, but you hurt our people. Do you think the restaurant is more valuable, or the people are more valuable? Zeta Persei approached Tan Xiu step by step and asked in a deep voice. Brother He, this child doesn't know any better. We apologize to you. We hope that you can forgive us. Seeing Zeta Persei's fierce look, Su Lingyun panicked. She straightened her body, like an eagle protecting a chick, and once again protected Tan Xiu behind her. Not sensible. You want to dismiss us with just one sentence? Do you think we are beggars? Zeta Persei snorted coldly and wanted to reach out and push Su Lingyun aside. However, before Zeta Persei's hand could touch Su Lingyun's body, Tan Xiu gently hugged his mother in his arms and said softly, Mom, it's okay. Leave it to me. You just watch from the side. As Tan Xiu spoke, he held his mother's palm tightly. His thumb inadvertently pressed against the Shinmen acupoint on the side of his mother's little finger, where the wrinkled head was sunken. He gently rubbed it. The Shinmen acupoint had the effect of helping people sleep peacefully. For a month, she had been harassed by a group of gangsters led by Zeta Persei, and the business of the restaurant was bleak. Su Lingyun had long been physically and mentally exhausted, but the huge pressure made her toss and turn and unable to fall asleep. With the help of Tan Xiu, Su Lingyun soon could not resist the attack of fatigue, and her upper and lower eyelids were fighting. Tang Xiu had long expected that such a situation would happen. A rare tenderness appeared on his face as he stretched out his other hand and touched the midpoint of his mother's Anmian acupoint that was connected to the depression behind her earlobe and the depression under her occipital bone. The Anmian acupoint was similar to the Shinmen acupoint. It also had the effect of calming and aiding sleep. Under Tan Xiu's kneading, Su Lingyun quickly tilted her head and fell on Tan Xiu's shoulder. She simply fell asleep. When Su Lingyun fell asleep, her originally frowning eyebrows gradually relaxed, and a serene and sweet smile even appeared on her face. You. Witnessing Tan Xiu's behavior of hypnotizing Su Lingyun, Zeta Persei's eyes were almost round. His mouth was also slightly open, and he could not speak for a long time. Tan Xiu's behavior of hypnotizing Su Lingyun set off a storm in Zeta Persei's heart. It was far more shocking than the shock brought by Tan Xiu taking down the 6 gangsters. It must be known that Su Lingyun was originally in a state of high tension and excitement. In this state, no matter how tired Su Lingyun was, it was impossible for her to fall asleep, not to mention that there were a few people around her crying and howling. But Tan Xiu only took a minute to make Su Lingyun fall asleep. This ability was too incredible. The playful smile on Zeta Persei's face had long disappeared and was replaced by a solemn expression. My mother is asleep. Now we can discuss the compensation. How do you think we should solve the compensation problem? Tan Xiu ignored Zeta Persei's fuss and asked indifferently. How do you want to solve it? Zeta Persei was afraid that Tan Xiu would suddenly do that to him and make him fall asleep. He felt that it was meaningless to continue to insist on Tan Xiu's compensation. He had already decided to compromise in his heart. It's up to you how to solve it. If you don't show enough sincerity, I don't mind teaching you a lesson. Tan Xiu's face turned cold and he said sternly. You. Zeta Persei obviously did not expect Tan Xiu's attitude to be so tough, and Tan Xiu's condescending attitude also made him very unhappy. After staring at Tan Xiu for a long time, Zeta Persei could not help but laugh out of anger. He pointed at Tan Xiu's nose and said, Kid, I, Zeta Persei, have seen countless people, and you're the most courageous one I've ever seen. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you know some crude acupressure techniques. When Zeta Persei started to mingle in the underworld, you, kid, were still in your mother's womb. I originally wanted to keep the peace and just treat it as making a friend. Since you're so insensible, then don't blame me for being ruthless. As Zeta Persei spoke, he took out a butterfly knife from his hand, and his eyes revealed a bloodthirsty glint. The butterfly knife danced merrily in Zeta Persei's hand, and it was a dazzling sight. The whistling wind gave people a great sense of oppression. Zeta Persei looked at Tan Xiu with mockery and disdain. The butterfly knife did not have any lethality, and those who knew martial arts would not use it as a weapon. Daggers, bayonets, batons, police crutches, and even kitchen knives and machetes were more lethal than the butterfly knife. However, Zeta Persei especially liked the butterfly knife because it looked so cool when it was spun. For more than 20 years, Zeta Persei had trained hard with the butterfly knife, and he had even customized countless butterfly knives for himself. He had long developed his own style of using the butterfly knife. As a result, after more than 20 years, the butterfly knife, which was just a fancy trick in the eyes of others, became a trump card in Zeta Persei's hands. Under the pressure of Zeta Persei's aggressive aura, Tan Xiu took a step back, and then another. The kitchen was narrow to begin with. When Tan Xiu took 6 steps back, his back was against the wall, and he had nowhere to go. Kid, I don't think there's anything wrong with your brain like the rumors say. You're a very opinionated person. Why don't you convince your mother to live with me, and I'll protect you and your mother in the future? Seeing that he had forced Tan Xiu into a desperate situation, Zeta Persei's face showed a hint of ferocity, and he smiled playfully. When you say that, no one can save you anymore. Tan Xiu sighed and hooked his foot. The green-haired hooligan who was the first to fall to the ground flew up and slammed into Zeta Persei. Zeta Persei subconsciously wanted to swing the butterfly knife in his hand, but after he saw what was coming at him, he had to withdraw the knife and use his arm to block the green-haired hooligan's body. Just when Zeta Persei thought he could easily block the green-haired hooligan's body, his expression changed drastically. Zeta Persei was horrified to find that he had ignored the speed of the green-haired hooligan's body. It was because of this oversight that Zeta Persei suffered fatal pain. The green-haired hooligan's body was like a speeding train as he slammed into Zeta Persei, directly smashing Zeta Persei's body into the air. With a crisp crack, Zeta Persei's hands were declared broken. Things did not end there. After the green-haired hooligan's body hit Zeta Persei's body, their bodies continued to fly in the air. After a long while, only a muffled bang was heard. The green-haired hooligan and Zeta Persei's bodies hit the wall at the same time and then slid to the ground powerlessly. After this collision, both Brother He and the green-haired hooligan fainted. Wake those 2 people up. If you pretend that you can't stand up, then don't ever get up again. After Tan Xiu kicked Brother He, he glanced at the other 5 hooligans lying on the ground and scolded them sternly. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, the 5 hooligans turned over and got up from the ground. However, the 5 hooligans did not listen to Tan Xiu's order to wake up Zeta Persei and the green-haired hooligan. Instead, they rushed in the direction of the kitchen door, trying to escape this hellish place. You want to leave? Did I let you leave? As Tan Xiu spoke, he raised his palm and 5 chopsticks shot out from his hand and directly inserted into the thighs of the 5 hooligans, causing the 5 hooligans to fall limply to the ground. Having dominated the immortal world for thousands of years, Tan Xiu had long been accustomed to being bossy and bossy. Now that he had returned to Earth, although he had cultivated in school for a month, the arrogance and domineeringness in his bones had not diminished in the slightest. Now that he was provoked by a group of hooligans, he seemed to have returned to the immortal world, the world of decisive killing. If you continue to cry like ghosts and howl like wolves, the chopsticks in my hand will penetrate your brains instead of your thighs. Do you want to try it? Tan Xiu ignored the miserable state of the 5 hooligans and said indifferently. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, the screams and wails in the kitchen stopped abruptly. The 5 hooligans looked at Tan Xiu with eyes full of horror and fear. One had to know that these people usually scared the old, weak, women and children at most. They had never seen blood at all. The reason why they dared to come and harass Linjia restaurant was because they knew the background of Linjia restaurant. A weak woman without the strength to truss a chicken and a senior high school student with a weak body and a mental illness. Never in their wildest dreams did these 5 people imagine that a bone that was originally easy to chew would suddenly become a hard bone that directly broke their teeth. Under Tan Xiu's fierce gaze, the 5 hooligans endured the pain and limped to the side of Zeta Persei and the green-haired hooligan. Then, they scooped up a spoonful of tap water and poured it on their heads. Under the cold water, Zeta Persei and the green-haired hooligan quickly woke up. "Everyone, let's go together and cripple this little bastard for me. I'll be responsible if someone dies." As soon as Zeta Persei opened his eyes, he roared hysterically. As soon as Zeta Persei's voice fell, he heard a crisp, "pa" sound and then felt a burning pain on his face. At the same time, Zeta Persei felt a salty and hot liquid gushing out of his mouth, mixed with small hard fragments. Zeta Persei reached out and touched the corner of his mouth with difficulty. Then, he found a smear of red in the palm of his hand and a small piece of broken teeth. The smear of red was so dazzling and glaring in Zeta Persei's eyes that Zeta Persei's eyes were dazzled and he was in a trance. "I was beaten up. I was beaten up without any ability to fight back." Looking at Tan Xiu's mocking face, Zeta Persei's eyes were full of disbelief. Chapter 16. Zeta Persei, are you sure you can take responsibility if someone dies? Tan Xiu looked coldly at Zeta Persei and said indifferently. "Tan Xiu, you have to think about it clearly. You opened your store to do business, and we're just a group of gangsters who have nothing to do. Unless you kill us, otherwise, if you offend us, don't even think about staying in Star City." Zeta Persei said in a muffled voice after a moment of silence. From Tan Xiu's words and actions, Zeta Persei had already judged that Tan Xiu was a ruthless person, and a ruthless person who must not be provoked. However, it was impossible for Zeta Persei to bow his head and apologize to Tan Xiu, so he directly broke the pot and began to act shamelessly. Zeta Persei was used to acting shamelessly as his last trump card, and this trick was extremely effective against ordinary people. But this trick was obviously ineffective in front of Tan Xiu. Before Zeta Persei's voice fell, a few chopsticks shot out from Tan Xiu's hand and directly sank into his black thigh. Stimulated by the tremendous pain, Zeta Persei jumped up from the ground with a whoosh sound. The next moment, Zeta Persei made a painful howl from his throat, and his body fell limply to the ground again. "Zeta Persei, don't say that I didn't give you a chance. You can call outside for help now. I'll take on as many people as you want. I'd like to see how you're going to make us mother and son have no place in Star City." In the 10,000 years in the immortal world, Tan Xiu was used to not making a move, but once he did, he would exterminate an entire family with the force of a thunderbolt. He would never be sloppy and give his enemies any chance to make a comeback. Zeta Persei and the others had been harassing the Linjia restaurant not for a day or two, but for as long as half a year. In this month, it had become even worse, to the extent that the restaurant was unable to operate at all. This had already touched the bottom line of Tan Xiu's heart. Since he had already fallen out with Zeta Persei, Tan Xiu naturally would not give Zeta Persei any breathing space. Instead, he planned to completely eliminate Zeta Persei and the others. "You." Hearing Tan Xiu's words, Zeta Persei was completely stunned. Zeta Persei did not expect that his words would not only fail to frighten Tan Xiu, but also embarrass him. "I will only give you 10 minutes. If no one comes in 10 minutes, prepare to lie in bed for the rest of your lives." Tan Xiu glanced at Zeta Persei and said unhurriedly. Hearing Tan Xiu's cold and emotionless words, Zeta Persei's heart sank. Although Zeta Persei could call a lot of people over with a phone call, distant water could not quench the present thirst. Tan Xiu only needed to restrain him, and no matter how many people he called over, they would not be able to take action for fear of harming the innocent. "Tan Xiu, we are all neighbors, and we will see each other all the time. There is no need to do things to the extreme." After a long silence, Zeta Persei said bitterly. It was just that before Zeta Persei finished speaking, Tanshio raised his palm and slapped him hard. You also know that we are neighbors. Do you think what you have done in the past month is something that a neighbor would do? Looking at the stunned Zeta Persei, Tanshio questioned disdainfully. Tanshio, don't forget that your family owns a restaurant. You need to pay attention to harmony when doing business. You won't get any benefits if you offend us. Spitting out the spittle mixed with broken teeth and dirty blood, Black 3 gnashed his teeth and said. Is that so? Then I want to see what the consequences of offending you are. Tanshio laughed instead of being angry. Another 2 slaps fell on Zeta Persei's face. Poor Zeta Persei had dominated the old River Street area for more than 20 years. He had never suffered any grievances, let alone being slapped repeatedly like today. He was completely stunned by Tanshio. From Tanshio, Zeta Persei did not feel any murderous intent, which made Zeta Persei think that Tanshio was a harmless sunny boy. But after being beaten up by Tanshio, when Zeta Persei looked at Tanshio seriously again, Zeta Persei's perception of Tanshio changed dramatically. There was no murderous intent on Tanshio's body, but Tanshio's eyes were full of indifference, a kind of indifference to life. This attitude of not caring about life was far more terrifying than murderous intent. There is something wrong with Zeta Persei's brain. Is there anyone with a normal brain? If there is a normal brain, hurry up and call for help. 10 minutes is not a long time. When Tanshio saw that Zeta Persei seemed to have been beaten silly by him, he turned his eyes to the others and urged impatiently. When the others saw that Zeta Persei was beaten up so badly, they were frightened. Seeing that Tanshio suddenly turned the spearhead to them, they trembled and hurriedly turned their heads, pretending not to hear Tanshio's words. At the same time, they prayed that Tanshio's eyes would not fall on them. It seems that there is something wrong with everyone's brain. In that case, don't blame me for being rude. Clearly seeing the reaction of everyone in the kitchen, Tanshio sneered, then hooked his foot and tripped the absent-minded Zeta Persei. With a muffled thud, Zeta Persei fell head-first into the trash can. The trash can of the restaurant was full of oil and water. Previously, Zeta Persei and the others felt that the trash can was dirty, so they deliberately avoided the trash can when they smashed things. Therefore, the trash can was full of all kinds of oil and cold leftovers, emitting waves of rancid smell. When Zeta Persei fell into the trash can, a suppressed cry of pain came from his throat. At the same time, he waved his hands and feet, splashing hogwash all over the room. Due to the fracture of both of his hands, Zeta Persei used all his strength to struggle out of the trash can. The more he struggled, the more oxygen he consumed. In the end, he was almost suffocated. His body's movements gradually became full, and his voice gradually faded. Looking at Zeta Persei's body twitching from time to time, and the bubbles that kept gushing out of the trash can, then looking at Tanshio standing next to the trash can with an indifferent face, the other 6 gangsters could no longer pretend. Before today, these 6 gangsters had been blindly worshipping Zeta Persei. They felt that Zeta Persei was invincible and invincible. In their hearts, Zeta Persei was invincible and omnipotent. However, after seeing Zeta Persei being beaten up by Tanshio again and again, with almost no strength to fight back, their image of Zeta Persei in their hearts collapsed. At the same time, the image of Tanshio as a demon was established in their hearts and deeply rooted. 6 minutes have passed, and you haven't called for help. It seems that none of you intend to leave alive today. Just as the 6 gangsters stared at the trash can in a daze, a demonic voice suddenly rang in their ears, as if a clap of thunder had awakened them. 2 of the timid gangsters fell to the ground after hearing Tanshio's words. The others were also trembling, looking at Tanshio with fear and horror. Everyone has to pay for their own mistakes. Since you are not willing to call for help, then you can go to the trash can like Black. When Zeta Persei's body softened a little, and there were no signs of struggling at all, Tanshio frowned, then reached out and grabbed one of Zeta Persei's feet, and lifted Zeta Persei out of the trash can. After throwing Zeta Persei to the ground like trash, Tanshio ignored the pleas of the other gangsters and threw the green-haired gangster who had provoked him into the trash can. The green-haired gangster's hands were not broken. He struggled to climb out of the trash can almost as soon as he fell into it. But before the green-haired gangster had time to breathe fresh air, he heard a sharp piercing sound, followed by a sharp pain in his hands, and then his hands drooped down powerlessly. The green-haired gangster looked at Tanshio sadly and found that Tanshio was looking at him with a mocking face. At the critical moment, Tanshio used 2 chopsticks to pierce the arm of the green-haired gangster. Without waiting for the green-haired gangster to speak, Tanshio kicked the green-haired gangster's body again, and the green-haired gangster simply fell into the wooden barrel again. This time, the green-haired gangster did not continue to struggle, because he had no ability to struggle. Looking at the green-haired gangster's body constantly twitching in the trash can, and the motionless Zeta Persei lying on the ground, the other 5 gangsters' hearts were cold. They never imagined that Zeta Persei and the green-haired gangster would have such a miserable day. Thinking that the fate of Zeta Persei and the green-haired gangster was about to befall them, the other 5 people instantly collapsed. After exchanging glances, they did not hesitate to kneel in front of Tanshio. Tang. Brother Tang, you can't blame us for this matter. Someone paid us to constantly harass your restaurant, so we specifically targeted your restaurant. Brother Tang, we were paid to do things for others. You've hit and scolded us, please let us go. We're just a group of small fries living at the bottom of society. Many times, we don't have the freedom to do things ourselves. Brother Tang, although we smashed your restaurant, we dare to swear to God that we never hit your mother, we didn't even touch her. Among us, only Zeta Persei and the green-haired gangster are a bit ruthless, the others are just to make up the numbers. When the first person opened his mouth to beg for mercy, the others also poured out all the bitterness in their hearts. Tang Xiu couldn't help but feel a sense of absurdity as he looked at these bullies who were older than him and addressed him as Big Brother. However, in the 10,000 years of the immortal world, Tanshio had seen even more absurd and bizarre things. Naturally, he was not surprised by the reaction of this group of people in front of him. Everyone had their own way of survival. It was the same for people with high positions of power, and it was also the same for people with low status. While these people were crying and begging, they did not forget to secretly size up Tanshio and observe Tanshio's reaction. When these gangsters saw Tanshio's indifferent reaction in the face of their flattery and respect, Tanshio's position in their hearts rose again, and at the same time, he became extremely mysterious. Because according to their investigation, Tanshio was just an ordinary high school student from a remote village who came to Star City to study. Moreover, he was a high school student who had a brain problem after a car accident. But from today's in-depth contact, the rumor and the truth were too far apart. Who paid you to smash our restaurant? After a long silence, under the fearful gazes of the gangsters, Tanshio asked in a stern voice. His words were mixed with a kind of chilling coldness. Chapter 17. Tanshio was originally determined to end the lives of these punks. But looking at his mother in his arms, Tanshio's heart gave birth to a trace of hesitation. Killing people was not difficult, but dealing with the aftermath was a big problem. If it were not for his mother, Tanshio could kill people without any scruples, without worrying about any problems at all. With the shackles in his heart, Tanshio did not dare to kill people without scruples like in the immortal world. The words of these punks in front of him also made Tanshio feel compassion. Although pitiful people must be hateful, these people only smashed things and did not beat his mother. They did not deserve to die, not to mention that there seemed to be another hidden story. Brother Tang, the person who came to us at that time was a middle-aged man wearing sunglasses, but the person who negotiated with him was Zeta Persei. We don't know the real identity of the sunglasses man. Seeing that his topic had successfully attracted Tanshio's attention, one of the punks couldn't help but say. I don't know the identity of the sunglasses man, but I eavesdropped on the conversation between the sunglasses man and Zeta Persei. The sunglasses man seems to hate Brother Tang very much. The purpose of him asking us to harass the restaurant was to provoke you and then cripple you. He even offered a price. Another punk did not hesitate to continue the conversation, but his voice became smaller as he spoke. Nail, Ban's Ho, if you don't want to die a violent death, just say it, I promise you will die a happy death. Zeta Persei's voice suddenly sounded in the house. It turned out that Zeta Persei had woken up at some point, and he was looking at the two punks with threatening eyes. This was also the reason why Ban's Ho did not dare to continue speaking. Seeing that Zeta Persei still dared to make trouble at this time, Tan Shio's face sank. The next moment, the green-haired punk was pulled out of the trash can, and Zeta Persei was once again thrown into the trash can by Tan Shio. At this time, the green-haired gangster had already fainted, but he was lying on the ground with yellow blisters coming out of his mouth and nose. Spanner, you continue. Tan Shio picked up a rag to wipe his hands and casually gestured to Zeta Persei. Ban's Ho glanced at Zeta Persei, who was struggling in the trash can, and then looked at Green Hair, who was lying on the ground with bubbles coming out of his mouth. He swallowed with difficulty and stuttered when he spoke. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Ban's Ho said with difficulty, Tang. Brother Tang, that sunglasses guy said, he said that if he can cripple one of your hands, he will add another 100,000. If he can cripple one of your legs, he will add another 200,000. Zeta Persei, he agreed. Hearing Bansho's words, Tan Shio couldn't help but frown. He really couldn't figure out who had such a big hatred with him that he actually wanted to cripple his hands and feet. After staring at Ban's Ho for a moment and confirming that Ban's Ho wasn't lying, Tan Shio kicked the trash can, giving Zeta Persei a chance to breathe fresh air again. Who sent you to deal with me? Tan Shio kicked Zeta Persei's body and asked sternly. Zeta Persei seemed to be in a semi-conscious state at this time. He moved his eyelids but didn't answer Tan Shio. Tan Shio was not in a hurry. He glanced at the kitchen and then saw a steaming steamer. He grinned and directly untied the steamer. The boiling water was directly poured on Zeta Persei's body. With the pouring of boiling water, Zeta Persei's body twitched fiercely, and his screams and wails also resounded through the sky. Who sent you to deal with me? Seeing that Zeta Persei finally became sober, Tan Shio continued to ask. Zeta Persei looked at Tan Shio resentfully. He wanted to say a few harsh words, but when he thought about the consequences of his previous harsh words, he had to swallow the words he wanted to say. Having been in the underworld for more than 20 years, Zeta Persei had seen all kinds of people, but he had never seen a person as indifferent as Tan Shio. Zeta Persei knew that if he continued to be ignorant, Tan Shio would really take his life. It was just that he had to admit his mistake to a high school student who was still wet behind the ears. Zeta Persei's heart was extremely aggrieved. If you don't want to say it, then don't ever say it. While Zeta Persei was absent-minded, a large pot of boiling water fell from the sky and fell directly on Zeta Persei. I'll say it all. Looking at the indifference to life in Tan Shio's eyes, Zeta Persei completely woke up. He rolled his body in a hurry and pleaded loudly. It had to be said that a person's potential was infinite. Even though Zeta Persei was seriously injured, he still dodged the boiling water at the critical moment and avoided the fate of being cooked. However, the splashing boiling water still caused him to be injured quite badly. That sunglasses man is Su Kun, the sales manager of Shangguan Real Estate. It seems that you offended his boss and made him lose a lot of face. The one who really wants to deal with you is Su Kun's boss. Zeta Persei was afraid that if he spoke too slowly, Tan Shio would continue to take care of him. He didn't care about the injuries on his body and spilled out all the information he knew like pouring beans. Shangguan Real Estate. Even though Tan Shio had doubts in his heart, when his guess was confirmed, his expression couldn't help but change. His heart was also filled with anger. Because of his uncle's family's various high-profile and flaunting, Tan Shio naturally knew who the boss behind Shangguan Real Estate was. Never had Tan Shio thought that even though he spared his youngest uncle's family due to their kinship, his youngest uncle's family would actually push him and his mother to death. Su Shangguan, since you are so heartless, don't blame me for being unjust. Looking at the direction of the Shangguan real estate building, Tan Xiu had the thought of killing for the first time. Tan Xiu was so agitated that he completely forgot the existence of Zeta Persei and his gang. However, after the group of hoodlums led by Zeta Persei had been beaten up by Tan Xiu over and over again, they were already afraid of Tan Xiu from the bottom of their hearts. Even if Tan Xiu was in a daze, they still didn't dare to make any strange movements. Tang. Brother Tang, these are all the valuable things we have on us. If it's not enough, we can think of a way to get more. Tan Xiu was pondering how to deal with Su Shangwen's family without making his mother sad at the same time, when a weak voice sounded in his ear. Hearing the voice of Ban's Ho, Tan Xiu then noticed that there were still a few people in the kitchen waiting to be sentenced by him. Ban Shou's hands were holding a large stack of cash, jewelry, and a bank card. The cash was roughly estimated to be around 50 to 60,000 yuan. The jewelry was directly ignored by Tan Xiu, but the golden bank card made Tan Xiu's eyes light up. Tan Xiu's gaze swept over everyone and finally fell on Zeta Persei. Do you think this money is enough to compensate? Tan Xiu didn't reach out to take the things that Ban's Ho handed over, but disdainfully ridiculed. Tan Xiu's words made the black eyes instantly dim. At this moment, Zeta Persei regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. Looking at the restaurant that was smashed beyond recognition by him, Zeta Persei knew that the money he took out was really not enough to compensate. After 3 days, I hope to see a brand new restaurant, otherwise you will have to bear the consequences. Tan Xiu coldly glanced at the black people, then walked out of the kitchen with his mother and left the restaurant. The kitchen was too dirty and smelly. Tan Xiu, who had a slight obsession with cleanliness, stayed in the kitchen for a long time. His endurance had reached the limit. He really didn't want to waste time with a group of gangsters, so he decisively chose to leave. After Tan Xiu left the restaurant for a long time, Zeta Persei and others came back to their senses. That devil really left? He should have left. If he didn't leave, I would have collapsed. It's good that he left, it's good that he left. That devil is too scary. I don't want to deal with him anymore. After confirming that Tan Xiu had left, Zeta Persei and others cried tears of joy. Their whole body relaxed, and one by one, they sat on the ground with a smile on their face, completely ignoring the mess on the ground. After resting for a moment, Zeta Persei suddenly coldly snorted and said to the apprehensive Ban's Ho, "Ban's Ho, you brat, you were very arrogant just now. You actually wanted to betray me?" Ban's Ho shrank his neck when he heard this, and the expression on his face also fluctuated. After a long time, his eyes flashed with a firm look, and he sternly said, "Brother He, you have mingled in the old River Street area for more than 20 years. It's time to retire." You. Zeta Persei obviously didn't expect that Ban's Ho would dare to challenge him without Tan Xiu's support. He frowned and wanted to scold Ban's Ho, but he had only said a word when he found that the surrounding atmosphere seemed to be a little wrong. Apart from Green Hair, the other 5 hoodlums in the kitchen were impressively standing together with Ban's Ho, and all of them were looking at him with ridiculing eyes. "Brother He, thank you for taking us in when we were most helpless, and gave us a mouthful of food to eat. But we have done so many things for you, and it's enough to repay the grace of taking us in. But we don't want to continue mingling with you because you are too cruel, too selfish, and have no bottom line to speak of." Under the astonished gaze of Zeta Persei, Ban's Ho said word by word. "Even if we are mingling in the underworld, we still need to follow the rules. But you have never followed the rules. This is not the underworld we want." Ban's Ho stuffed all the cash, jewelry, and bank cards into his pocket and said in a desolate manner, "From today onwards, I don't want to see you in the old River Street area. You're on your own." After Ban's Ho said these words, he turned around and left the restaurant, leaving Zeta Persei with a resolute back. "Brother He, you can't hate us for our betrayal. If you want to blame something, blame yourself for being unreasonable and selfish. Brother He, don't think about taking back the right to speak. For the past 2 years, you have been cooped up in your comfortable nest, enjoying yourself, and using your brothers as coolies. Brother Banzhou has already obtained everyone's complete approval. Brother He, actually, we have already advised Brother Banzhou to deal with you. But Brother Banzhou is benevolent and righteous, and he couldn't bear to make a move against you. He insisted on surrounding you with us brothers to act. You were actually kept in the dark for 2 years, and you didn't notice anything unusual. I don't know if I should say that you are stupid, or should I be proud of your acting skills. If Tan Xiu's attack on Zeta Persei was only a physical attack, then Banzhou and his group of hoodlums' attack on Zeta Persei was a mental attack. When all the hoodlums that Zeta Persei regarded as his confidants left, and finally only Green Hair was left looking at him, not knowing what to do. Zeta Persei seemed to have his soul extracted, as he sat in the kitchen without moving for a long time. Chapter 18. 10 minutes later, the figures of Tan Xiu and his mother appeared in front of a low shantytown. Due to financial constraints, Tan Xiu and his mother did not have their own house in Star City. They rented a house in the cheapest shantytown in the Old River Street district as a temporary residence. Gently placing his mother on the low wooden bed, Tan Xiu began to busy himself in the house. In the thousands of years in the immortal world, Tan Xiu had long been accustomed to stretching out his hand and opening his mouth to eat. Sometimes, it was not a problem even if he did not eat or drink for hundreds of years. Suddenly having Tan Xiu take care of the house, he was obviously not used to it. After a moment of effort, Tan Xiu's movements slowly changed from rusty to skillful, and a smile gradually emerged on his face. The house was not big, only about 40 square meters, and was divided into 4 rooms. The living room and dining room were connected together, with a dilapidated sofa as the dividing line, and then there was the kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom. Looking at the clean pillows and old quilts on the sofa, Tan Xiu felt a burst of sadness. Because the house was too small, there was only one bedroom. Su Lingyun left the bedroom for Tan Xiu, and she had been sleeping on the sofa. Even when Tan Xiu was staying at school, Su Lingyun still insisted on sleeping on the sofa and refused to step into the bedroom. In Su Lingyun's words, Tan Xiu had grown up and must have his own independent space. It was Su Lingyun's meticulous care and pampering that made Tan Xiu unable to cut off his attachment to his mother for thousands of years in the immortal world. Half an hour later, the house from top to bottom became neat and tidy. It was spotless inside and out, and the whole house looked brand new. Seeing that it was already late, and remembering that his mother had not eaten yet, Tan Xiu tiptoed into the kitchen. While Tan Xiu was cleaning up the house at home, a human tragedy was unfolding in the Linjia restaurant. An hour ago, after Yuan Chuling handed in his paper, he happily walked to Tan Xiu's examination room, wanting to share his joy with Tan Xiu. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu had already left the school one step ahead of him. Yuan Chuling, who was familiar with the traces of cultivation, did not hesitate to rush to the Linjia restaurant. Then, Yuan Chuling saw a scene that made him extremely angry. The restaurant, which Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu regarded as their own life, was smashed beyond recognition. For a moment, Yuan Chuling was filled with regret and hatred. He blamed himself for being too selfish. He clearly had the ability to help Tan Xiu improve his life, but he did not do so. Just as Yuan Chuling was about to call the police, he heard faint voices coming from the kitchen. Yuan Chuling went over without hesitation. In the kitchen, Zeta Persei and Green Hair did not notice Yuan Chuling's arrival at all. They were still gritting their teeth and cursing Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu. At the same time, they were plotting how to take revenge on Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu. Zeta Persei and Green Hair were first beaten half to death by Tan Xiu today. Then, they were betrayed by Banzhou and his group. At this time, their minds were already twisted and they were completely blinded by hatred. So, other than revenge, there was only revenge in their hearts. Just as the two of them were engrossed in discussing how to humiliate Su Lingyun, Yuan Chuling stepped into the kitchen with a dark face. Under the dazed gazes of Zeta Persei and Green Hair, Yuan Chuling swung a wooden stool in his hand and fiercely smashed it down on them. If it was before Zeta Persei and Greenhair were injured, with their rich battle experience and fighting skills, Yuan Chuling would definitely not be their match. Unfortunately, Zeta Persei's hands were already fractured by Tan Xiu, and Greenhair also had a few broken ribs. The two of them were practically crippled at this time. Even an ordinary person could take care of them, let alone the tall and strong Yuan Chuling. Yuan Chuling smashed them for more than 10 minutes until his hands became sore and soft. At this time, Zeta Persei and Greenhair had already fainted. They were covered in blood, and there was not a single part of their bodies that was intact. I killed someone. After venting the anger in his heart, Yuan Chuling finally sobered up. Seeing the shocking scene on the ground, his complexion became deathly pale, and then he turned around and ran. Almost as soon as Yuan Chuling left the restaurant, Banzhou, Dingzi, and the others came back. When Banzhou inadvertently saw a line of footprints full of blood extending from the kitchen to the restaurant's entrance, his complexion couldn't help but greatly change, and then he quickly rushed into the kitchen. Behind Banzhou, Dingzi, and the others also faintly guessed what had happened, and they hurriedly followed. Seeing Zeta Persei and Greenhair lying motionless in a pool of blood, Banzhou and the others' pupils shrank, and their complexion also became deathly pale. Quick, they still have one breath left, quickly call an ambulance. After carefully examining Zeta Persei and Greenhair's injuries, Banzhou subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief, and then he sternly ordered. Hearing that Zeta Persei and Greenhair were still alive, the others also felt relaxed, and then they quickly busied themselves. However, seeing Zeta Persei and Greenhair's miserable state, they couldn't help but feel distressed. These people knew that if they hadn't chosen to follow Banzhou and Dingzi at the critical moment, and had continued to follow Zeta Persei and Greenhair, then they would have ended up the same as Zeta Persei and Greenhair. Banzhou, who beat up Zeta Persei and Greenhair like this? This is the rhythm of taking their lives. Looking at Zeta Persei and Greenhair on the ground, whose complexion had become deathly pale due to excessive blood loss, Dingzi said with lingering fear. Dingzi knew that if his group hadn't come in time, Zeta Persei and Greenhair would absolutely not have escaped death. Hearing Dingzi's words, Tan Xiu's figure subconsciously flashed in Banzhou's mind, and then he shuddered all over, but he didn't dare to say his own guess. Although Dingzi didn't say anything, Banzhou and the others were well aware of it. Outside the restaurant, after Yuan Chuling ran for a long distance, he couldn't help but turn back. However, when he saw the shadows of people moving about in the restaurant, he didn't dare to enter. Instead, he hid outside to check on the situation. It wasn't until he heard that no one was dead that his heart was finally at ease. River Street Old Area, Shanty Town. After nearly an hour of busy work, Tan Xiu finally tossed about a table full of dishes, and a sincere smile appeared on his face. In order to make this table full of dishes, Tan Xiu even went to the vegetable market twice. When he went to the vegetable market for the first time, Tan Xiu only bought some common vegetables. However, when Tan Xiu checked his mother's body, he found that she was in a state of serious overdraft, and there were many hidden diseases in her body, so he couldn't help going to the vegetable market to buy some astragalus and red ginseng. After carefully tasting the dishes on the table and confirming that there were no mistakes, Tan Xiu went into the bedroom and woke his mother up. When Su Lingyun opened her eyes and saw where she was, she couldn't help but be at a loss. "Xiu, weren't we in the restaurant? Why did you come home and fall asleep? Mom, you've been too tired these days. Plus, you were so angry that you fainted." Tan Xiu explained with a smile. "Mom, the matter at the restaurant has been solved. Under my repeated pleas, Zeta Persei and others have promised not to harass the restaurant anymore, and they will help renovate the restaurant." Before his mother could ask, Tan Xiu told her what his mother was worried about. Su Lingyun's face was full of disbelief when she heard the words, and then she hurriedly picked up Tan Xiu's clothes and checked Tan Xiu's body. After confirming that Tan Xiu was not injured, she muttered incredulously, "Zeta Persei and those people are gangsters who eat people without spitting out the bones. How could they let our restaurant go so easily? Mom, as the saying goes, everything has its vanquisher." They originally ignored me, but after I showed the business cards of Police Officer Ching Xuemei and Police Officer Hu Wenxiu, they suddenly became like a mouse seeing a cat. They were afraid that I would complain to Police Officer Ching Xuemei. In addition to promising to help restore the restaurant, they also took out their money and jewelry and gave them to me. In order to completely reassure his mother, Tan Xiu had to rack his brains to make up a story. What made Tan Xiu ecstatic was that he found that his ability to weave stories was not ordinary. He even fooled himself, not to mention his mother who trusted him very much. Xiu, you are still smart. Mom will find time to visit Police Officer Cheng and Police Officer Hu. We, who run a restaurant, still have to be closer to the authorities so that those gangsters will be afraid. Mom is far inferior to you on this point. Su Lingyun touched Tan Xiu's head lovingly and sighed softly. Mom, let's talk about other things later. Let's eat first, or the food will get cold. Tan Xiu saw that his mother wanted to continue sighing, so he pushed her out of the bedroom. Okay, I'll go make food right now. Why is there so much food? Did you order takeout? Su Lingyun didn't hear Tan Xiu clearly because she was in a daze. She subconsciously wanted to go into the kitchen to make food, but when she saw the table full of food, she couldn't help but exclaim. Mom, I worked hard for an hour to make all these food. They are all your favorites. Do you like them? Tang Xiu pushed his mother to her seat and filled her bowl with food. Only then did he speak out with a nervous expression. Tan Xiu made a total of 4 dishes and a pot of medicinal cuisine. The 4 dishes were taro chicken, steamed fish, stir-fried rape, daylily soup, and medicinal porridge to replenish one's energy. Smelling the tempting aroma on the table, Su Lingyun's appetite was aroused. She couldn't wait to gobble down the food. Mom, eat slowly. Don't choke. If the food on the table isn't enough, I'll make more for you. Tang Xiu's heart was filled with a great sense of achievement when he saw his mother gulping down the food. This sense of achievement was more intense than when he had a breakthrough in his cultivation. Xiu, don't just watch Mom eat. Eat some too. After eating for a while, Su Lingyun realized that her son was staring at her in a daze. She blushed and hurriedly called out to him. Okay, let's eat together. This was the first time Tan Xiu saw his mother lose her composure. He smiled and then picked up his chopsticks to eat slowly. While the mother and son were happily enjoying their warm dinner, a loud bang suddenly came from outside. The whole house shook violently. Then, 3 men in suits and leather shoes stormed into the house. Glancing at Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu who were eating happily, the man with the buzz cut grinned. He lifted his thigh and kicked the low wooden table. With a series of clanking sounds, the already shaky wooden table directly announced its end and fell into a ball. The dishes on the table were also scattered all over the ground. You have money to eat, but you don't have money to pay back. You fucking played me like a monkey. After kicking the table, the man with the buzz cut roared and swung his palm towards Su Lingyun's face. Chapter 19. Su Lingyun was completely immersed in the warm atmosphere created by Tan Xiu. She did not expect that someone would come to visit at this time and greet her in such an unusual way. After seeing the faces of the 3 men in suits, Su Lingyun's heart skipped a beat, and her face became extremely ugly. Because she was in a trance, Su Lingyun did not even see the buzz-cut man's action of kicking over the dining table. It was not until the buzz-cut man slapped her face with a hideous smile that Su Lingyun finally reacted, and then she screamed and wanted to dodge. However, Su Lingyun was still sitting on the chair at this time. If she wanted to avoid the buzz-cut man's slap, she had to stand up straight first and then move her feet. Obviously, the buzz-cut man would not wait for her to stand up straight before dodging, so in the face of the buzz-cut man's slap, Su Lingyun could not avoid it. Seeing that the buzz-cut man's slap was about to fall on Su Lingyun's face, Su Lingyun closed her eyes in despair. The next moment, Su Lingyun heard a wail. This voice was very familiar to Su Lingyun. It was from the buzz-cut man's mouth. Su Lingyun opened her eyes in shock and found that the fierce-looking buzzcut man was already squatting on the ground. A chicken bone was stuck in his forehead, and a stream of blood flowed along the bone and finally fell to the ground. Dumbo, how dare you hurt people? You're tired of living. The other two men in suits looked at their companion on the ground, and then looked at Tan Xiu who was sitting motionless on the chair. It took them a long time to realize that it was Tan Xiu who hit their companion with a chicken bone at the critical moment. They shouted angrily and then rushed to Tan Xiu together. No, please don't hurt my son. He didn't mean to hurt you. We are willing to pay for it. After being stunned for a moment, Su Lingyun also realized what had happened. She shouted hysterically, and at the same time, rushed in the direction of Tan Xiu, trying to replace Tan Xiu to bear the damage. Seeing his mother's frightened look, Tan Xiu's cold expression instantly melted. He stretched out his arms and held his mother in his arms. At the same time, he kicked with his toes, and two pieces of the porcelain bowl bounced up from the ground and splashed on the foreheads of the two men in suits. The two poor men in suits had just raised their thighs, but before they could even take a step, they followed in the footsteps of their companions and fell to the ground, howling in pain. Xiu, what's going on? Su Lingyun originally thought that she and her son would definitely be humiliated tonight. After seeing the sudden change, she was completely stunned. Mom, it's okay. I'm here. You don't have to worry. Leave this matter to me. Tan Xiu squeezed his mother's hand and comforted her softly. This time, Tan Xiu did not make his mother faint. Tan Xiu didn't want his mother to live in fear, so he wanted to show some of his abilities in front of his mother and let his mother know that he had the ability to protect the family. After comforting his mother's emotions, Tan Xiu walked in front of the three men in suits with a cold face and asked condescendingly, if I remember correctly, my mother has already paid back the tens of thousands of yuan she borrowed from your company with interest. Why are you still harassing us? Tan Xiu was no stranger to the three men in suits in front of him. When his mother opened the restaurant, she was short of money. Even if she borrowed from relatives and friends, she still had a gap of 50,000 yuan. Then she gritted her teeth and borrowed a small loan. The mother and son thought that it was just a loan of 50,000 yuan. As long as they were a little more diligent, the restaurant should be able to pay off the loan soon. They never thought that the predecessor of this small loan company was a usury company. They played tricks in the loan contract. The originally agreed interest of 3% turned out to be 33% in the loan contract. The loan of 50,000 yuan was paid off in half a year, but they actually had to pay back 12,000 yuan every month. After the mother and son's fierce resistance was futile, they could only endure it painfully and helplessly. What the mother and son didn't expect was that the contract trap and high interest was just the beginning of their nightmare. In the following time, they almost lived in a nightmare every moment. The restaurant was in a state of loss in the first month of operation. The mother and son were unable to repay the loan. As a result, the small loan company ignored the mother and son's pleas and left after smashing the house. They also threatened the mother and son to prepare the principal and interest within 3 days, otherwise the restaurant would be smashed. The mother and son really had no choice but to shamelessly borrow money from relatives and friends. After 3 days, they finally collected the principal and interest, so that the restaurant could escape the disaster. It seemed that the small loan company found that the mother and son were easy to bully. In the next few months, the small loan company basically came to the door every month to collect the money. They took pleasure in teasing and bullying the mother and son. In order to avoid being humiliated, whether the restaurant's profit was enough to repay the loan or not, Su Lingyun would prepare the principal and interest as soon as possible. Su Lingyun's restaurant was located in the Old River Street area, and she did business with neighbors. Coupled with Su Lingyun's honest and kind nature, it was destined that Su Lingyun's restaurant could not make too much profit every month. After half a year, Su Lingyun finally paid off all the money from the usury company with interest. However, apart from paying off the usury, the mother and son didn't even save a penny. They couldn't even pay Tan Xiu's tuition fees. Su Lingyun even lost £12 because of this. This was also why Su Lingyun's face changed when she saw the three men in suits, and the reason why Tan Xiu was even more ruthless. Tan Xiu, you idiot, how dare you attack us? We are backed by the serious gang. Do you believe that we will kill you and your son in minutes? The man with the buzz cut pulled out the chicken bone from his forehead and cursed while gnashing his teeth. We have been dealing with each other for half a year. You also know that there is something wrong with my brain. Do you think it is illegal if I kill the three of you? Tan Xiu sneered, picked up a bench, and slammed it on the man with the buzz cut. With a crisp sound, the scapula of the man with the buzz cut was broken. He grimaced in pain and couldn't even speak. I ask again. Why do you still come to harass us after we have exchanged the money? Tan Xiu didn't look at the man with the buzz cut and glanced at the other two men. Second. Tan Xiu, you have paid off the previous money, but someone signed a debt transfer contract with us last month, so you have a new loan relationship with our company. Under the fierce gaze of Tan Xiu, the other man in a suit originally wanted to call Tan Xiu an idiot, but when the words were on the tip of his tongue, he hurriedly changed it. Xiu, it's your uncle. We borrowed 50,000 yuan from your uncle before. Maybe he was angry because of what happened a month ago, so he went to Jujiufa Trading Company and changed the creditor relationship between us. Then Jujiufa Trading Company became our creditor again. Seeing that the man in a suit couldn't explain clearly, Su Lingyun added. After listening to Su Lingyun's words, Tan Xiu fell into silence. Thinking of what Bans Ho and Dingzi said in the restaurant, the anger in his heart was suddenly ignited. Tan Xiu really couldn't understand why his uncle would do things so ruthlessly when they were obviously a family. Mom, why did you only tell me after such a long time? After being silent for a long time, Tan Xiu complained in a soft voice. Su Lingyun just lovingly touched Tan Xiu's head and didn't speak. However, Tan Xiu could read the answer from his mother's eyes. There were only two reasons why his mother didn't tell him about the double harassment at the restaurant and at home. The most important reason was that she was worried that his grades would be affected, and the other reason was that even if she told him, it wouldn't help and would only add to his troubles. For a moment, Tan Xiu hated himself for not showing enough strength earlier. If he had, perhaps his mother would have discussed it with him when she encountered difficulties instead of silently enduring it. Isn't it just 50,000 yuan? Take this card and scram. If you dare to continue to harass my brother, I will make sure that your company can no longer operate in Star City. Just as Tan Xiu was thinking about how to solve the problem of the Eternal Growth Trading Company, a muffled thunder-like voice resounded in the house, followed by Yuan Chuling's fat body squeezing into the house. Fatty, why are you here? Tan Xiu was surprised and involuntarily cried out. Although he had been friends with Yuan Chuling for a long time, but because of his pitiful self-esteem, Tan Xiu had never brought Yuan Chuling to his home to play. He had never thought that Yuan Chuling would come to his door. Eldest brother, you are not loyal. You didn't even tell me about your family's difficulties. You don't treat me as a brother at all. Yuan Chuling punched Tan Xiu's chest and then grinned. Mom, let me introduce you. This is my classmate, Yuan Chuling. He is also my only best friend in school. This time, I transferred from class 5 to class 10, and he also followed me to class 10. Seeing his mother's eyes full of inquiry, Tan Xiu smiled and explained. Oh, so it's Tan Xiu's classmate. Welcome to our house. After listening to Tan Xiu's introduction, Su Lingyun's face revealed a warm smile. But when her eyes fell on the three big men in suits lying on the ground, her eyes couldn't help but turn gloomy, and the smile on her face faded a bit. You still haven't left? Are you waiting for me to send you away? Clearly seeing Su Lingyun's reaction, Yuan Chuling frowned and sternly scolded the three big men in suits. Young Master Yuan, I'm sorry. We didn't know that young Master Tang was your friend. If we knew that young Master Tang was your friend, we would never dare to come and harass young Master Tang. Young Master Yuan, this is your card. Please keep it. We accidentally knocked over the food of young Master Su and young Master Tang. The 50,000 yuan debt can be considered as compensation. Please say a few good words in front of young Master Yuan so that we brothers can continue to work in the company." After the two big men in suits dropped a few words in fear and trepidation, they held their buzz cuts and fled, for fear that they wouldn't be able to leave if they were too slow. Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu originally thought that Yuan Chuling's fiery temper would cause conflict and bring trouble to himself. They were planning to stop Yuan Chuling's impulsive behavior. They didn't think that before they could say anything, something shocking happened. For a moment, the mother and son couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 20. Fatty, what's going on? Why do they seem to be afraid of you? Although he had been friends with Yuan Chuling for a long time, Tan Xiu had never inquired about Yuan Chuling's family situation. Yuan Chuling also rarely mentioned his family information in front of Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu only vaguely knew that Yuan Chuling's parents had a large business with assets of more than 100 million. As for the rest, he knew nothing. After experiencing the incident just now, Tan Xiu found that the identity of his best friend seemed to be a bit mysterious. Hearing Tan Xiu's inquiry, Yuan Chuling's face swelled red, and his eyes were full of embarrassment. "Boss, the matter has been resolved, can you not get to the bottom of it?" Tan Xiu did not speak when he heard this, he just stared straight at Yuan Chuling. "Boss, I'm afraid of you, I'll say it." Under Tan Xiu's stare, Yuan Chuling was quickly defeated, and with a red face and ears, he said his relationship with Zhujiafa Trading Company. 5 years ago, the state vigorously cracked down on and rectified illegal usury companies, and Yuan Chuling's uncle took advantage of the situation to buy Zhujiafa Trading Company, and then became the owner of Zhujiafa Trading Company. However, Yuan Chuling's uncle, Zhao Tailin, was the kind of opportunistic, lazy, and slick person with no real ability, so after he became the owner of Zhujiafa Trading Company, he did not know how to run it, and let the original staff of the company run it. As a result, the company was in a foul atmosphere, and most of the time, Yuan Chuling's parents had to help clean up the mess. Because Yuan Chuling often visited the Eternal Growth Trading Company, and because Zhao Tailin was exceptionally fond of Yuan Chuling, over time, the entire Eternal Growth Trading Company had figured out the relationship between Yuan Chuling and Zhao Tailin, and they regarded Yuan Chuling as the crown prince. Hearing that the real boss behind Jiu Trading Company was actually Yuan Chuling's parents, Tan Xiu felt like vomiting blood and dying. He glanced at Yuan Chuling with hidden bitterness, unable to say a word. Thinking about how he and his mother had been forced into a corner by Jiu Trading Company for the past 6 months, Tan Xiu felt wronged. Su Lingyun's heart was also filled with mixed feelings, but in just a moment, she adjusted her mood, and then enthusiastically invited Yuan Chuling to sit down, and served tea to Yuan Chuling, and then quickly tidied up the house. "Boss, I'm sorry, since my parents divorced, I rarely went to Jiu Trading Company, and I didn't pay attention to their specific business, otherwise, this would not have happened." Yuan Chuling was very clear about the inside story of Jiu Trading Company, and glanced at the mess on the floor. Yuan Chuling's heart was full of guilt. "This matter has nothing to do with you, you don't have to blame yourself." Seeing Yuan Chuling's apologetic look, Tan Xiu's heart was also relieved. He patted Yuan Chuling's shoulder and curiously asked, "I remember I didn't tell you my address, how did you find it?" "Boss, what's going on at the restaurant?" "For no reason, why did those punks run to the restaurant and smash it? Do you need my help to deal with it?" Yuan Chuling asked excitedly after briefly explaining what happened at the restaurant. "The restaurant matter has been solved, thank you for your concern. It's not easy to have 2 days of monthly vacation, why don't you go back to accompany uncle and auntie?" Tan Xiu saw his mother's body stagnate after hearing about the restaurant matter, and he did not hesitate to change the topic. I. Boss, I haven't mentally prepared to see them yet, I want to wait until the end of the college entrance examination to consider this matter." Mentioning his parents, Yuan Chuling's mood instantly became depressed. 10 minutes later, the room was cleaned up by Su Lingyun, and then the three of them ate the leftovers in the kitchen for dinner. At the dinner table, Su Lingyun was full of praise for Tan Xiu's cooking, and Yuan Chuling was even wolfing down the food, almost eating most of the food by himself, which made Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu dumbfounded. Under Yuan Chuling's jesting, the originally cold and dull atmosphere quickly became cheerful and lively. "Boss, I remember yesterday you said that you wanted to get the first place in the grade this month. Now that all the exams have been completed, how confident are you to get the first place in the grade?" Unknowingly, the topic was turned to the monthly exam, and Yuan Chuling asked nervously. "Don't worry, when did I lie to you?" Seeing Yuan Chuling's concerned look, Tan Xiu nodded and said confidently. As soon as Tan Xiu's voice fell, he heard a crisp, clang sound. Tan Xiu followed the sound and saw that the bowl in his mother's hands suddenly fell to the ground, and she was still looking at him absent-mindedly. "Xiu, what you just said is true. Can you get the first place in this monthly exam?" Su Lingyun didn't bother to clean up the bowl and chopsticks that fell to the ground, but grabbed Tan Xiu's arm with an excited face and asked. "Mom, the monthly exam results will come out in 3 days at most, and then you will know the results." Tan Xiu could naturally read the worry in his mother's heart. Tan Xiu knew that his mother put almost all of her hopes on him, and the car accident more than a year ago almost destroyed all of his mother's hopes. For more than a year, although his mother still cared and took care of him meticulously, and didn't show any abnormalities in front of him, but Tan Xiu knew that his grades fell rapidly, and he didn't feel any pressure because his soul was damaged. The one who suffered the most pressure was definitely his mother. Now that he suddenly learned that his grades had recovered to the original level, it was normal for his mother to be so excited. "So, you only used a month to catch up with your grades?" Getting a positive answer from Tan Xiu, Su Lingyun was even more excited. "Of course, don't you know whose son I am?" Tan Xiu put on a pose and said with a smug face. That's great, that's great. I knew that after your body returned to normal, your results would definitely recover quickly. Now, your father's soul in heaven can rest in peace." As Su Lingyun spoke, 2 streams of hot tears gushed out of her eyes. However, her face was full of smiles. Clearly seeing the reactions of Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu, Yuan Chuling on the side wanted to say something, but his face was also full of worry. In this month, Yuan Chuling also devoted himself to his studies. He was very clear about the difficulty of improving grades. He really wanted to raise the difficulty of Su Lingyun's monthly exam results from the last place in the grade to the first place, but seeing Su Lingyun crying tears of joy, he didn't have the heart to say it. While worried that Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu were happy for nothing, Yuan Chuling was a little envious of the mother-son relationship between Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu. Thinking about the scene of his mother decisively leaving home, Yuan Chuling's eyes gradually became moist. While the students of Xingqing No. 1 High School were enjoying a rare 2-day holiday in a month, the teachers of the 3rd grade were already working overtime to mark the papers. For the teachers of the 3rd grade, this was a kind of pain and joy. The pain was because they had to sacrifice time with their families and rest time to mark the papers. The joy was because they could watch their students' grades improve little by little, as if they could see the promotion bonus after the college entrance examination. Yang Jian's grades are not bad. His language score is 128 points, his mathematics score is 135 points, and he also got 242 points in the comprehensive test. If he can get more than 120 points in the English test, he can choose most of the key universities in the country. Hu Qiushan calculated the grades of the top students in the class, and his face was full of satisfaction. In just one afternoon, it was impossible for the teachers of the 3rd grade to finish marking all the examinees' papers so quickly, but this did not prevent the homeroom teachers from marking the top students' papers in advance. Yang Jian's English results are out, 128 points, his total score has reached 633 points. Teacher Hu, congratulations. If he works hard in the next 2 months, Yang Jian is very likely to get into Jinghua University. Soon, the English teacher of Class 5 handed Yang Jian's English test paper to Hu Qiushan. Hearing that Yang Jian actually got 633 points in the 2nd monthly test, the other teachers in the office could not help but look at Hu Qiushan with envy, and then they all congratulated him. Sigh, our class's Tang Lijuan only got 610 points, looks like she can only settle for second place again. Teacher Xiao, don't sigh there. Our class's top student only got 598 points, I don't know if he can enter the top 10. This monthly test is much more difficult compared to the last monthly test, it is almost as difficult as the college entrance examination. Students who can get more than 550 points should be able to enter a famous university. In half a day, the teachers of the third grade had finished marking all the top students' papers, and they basically had an idea of this monthly test's results. Among the papers that had been marked, there were a total of 27 people who had scored more than 550 points, 12 of which were from Class 5, almost half of the total number. This made everyone feel envious and jealous of Hu Qiusheng's good luck, and at the same time, they had to congratulate him. Everyone, do you still remember the bet between me and Miss Han? After being praised by the teachers for a long time, Hu Qiusheng felt a little smug, and he said with a face full of excitement. Hu Qiusheng's words were like a pair of invisible hands strangling everyone's necks, and the office instantly quieted down. Looking at Hu Qiusheng's smug look, the others in the office frowned subconsciously, they had never felt so disgusted with someone before. My wife has been urging me several times, I have to go home for dinner first, goodbye everyone. It's too late today, if I don't go home soon, my girlfriend will definitely be angry, I can't continue marking the papers, I have to go. The papers of the top 20 students in each class have basically been marked, the remaining papers will be marked tomorrow. Everyone has worked hard today, go home and rest. Under the dumbfounded gaze of Hu Qiusheng, the room that was full of people a moment ago was instantly emptied, and finally, only he and Han Qingwu were left. Teacher Hu, do you want to go home now like everyone else, or do you want to mark Tan Xiu's papers alone, and then tamper with them? Han Qingwu looked at Hu Qiusheng with a faint smile, her face full of ridicule. You. Hu Qiusheng was almost choked by Han Qingwu's words and almost couldn't breathe. He pointed at Han Qingwu's nose and said, you, for a long time, but still couldn't say a complete sentence. Finally, he was out of breath and slammed the door. Chapter 21. These 2 days were undoubtedly the happiest time for Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu completely threw cultivation to the side, and also threw his studies to the side. He was always by his mother's side, unscrupulously enjoying his mother's pampering. In the tens of thousands of years in the immortal world, Tan Xiu had always hoped for such a day. Now that his long-cherished wish had finally been fulfilled, Tan Xiu cherished every minute and second he could spend with his mother. No matter when, no matter where, Tan Xiu's eyes couldn't bear to leave his mother's face for even a second. Feeling her son's attachment to her, Su Lingyun felt happy in her heart, but at the same time, she couldn't help but scold, you child, why do you always stare at mom? Is there a flower on mom's face? Mom's face is more beautiful than a flower. Tan Xiu blurted out without thinking. Hearing her son's praise, Su Lingyun's heart bloomed with joy, and then she scolded snappily, glib tongue, you must have a girlfriend in school. I do want to have a girlfriend, but unfortunately, no one is interested in your son. Tan Xiu curled his lips and said disdainfully. After saying that, Han Qingwu's figure flashed in Tan Xiu's mind, as well as the intimate scene between him and Han Qingwu. That's because they're blind. One day, they'll regret it. Looking at her son's satisfied and happy smile, Su Lingyun lovingly touched Tan Xiu's head, and then hugged Tan Xiu in her arms. Happy times are always short. The 2 days of monthly vacation passed in a flash. Although Tan Xiu's heart was full of reluctance, he had to return to school under his mother's urging. Have you guys heard? This time's monthly test results have all come out. I heard that someone in our class also entered the top 20 of the year. I've also heard about it. I didn't expect Cheng Yannan to be so good at learning in addition to her outstanding martial arts skills. I'm completely convinced by her. Cheng Yannan only scored 400 points in the last monthly test. How did she suddenly increase by more than 100 points this time? As soon as he entered the classroom, Tan Xiu heard everyone discussing the results of the monthly test. Tan Xiu did not participate in the discussion. Instead, he was racking his brains for ways to make money. After the restaurant was smashed and the debt collectors chased after him, Tan Xiu increasingly understood the importance of strength. Tan Xiu knew that if he was as powerless as he was before his rebirth, then this time, he and his mother would probably not be bullied by the few hoodlums led by Zeta Persei, but would also be beaten up by the few people from Eternal Growth Company. The consequences would be unimaginable. It was precisely because he coincidentally met the conditions to practice the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, and inadvertently practiced the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, that his body underwent earth-shattering changes within a month. This time, when he faced all kinds of crises, he had the power to protect himself. Because the side effects of practicing the heavenly art of cosmic genesis were too overbearing, Tan Xiu did not dare to take the initiative to practice the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Instead, he tried to find another cultivation method or combat skill that could replace the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. However, after a month, Tan Xiu had tried all the cultivation methods and combat skills in his mind. To his despair, he found that the cultivation methods and combat skills in the immortal world had harsh requirements for the spiritual energy of the heaven and earth. They were simply not suitable to be practiced on earth. When all the cultivation methods and combat skills could not be practiced, if Tan Xiu wanted to have the power to protect himself and his family, and even if he wanted to return to the immortal world for revenge, he must choose to practice the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. In order to practice the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, Tan Xiu naturally had to find ways to find and purchase all kinds of precious herbs and minerals to refine the body refining liquid to temper his body. All of these required a lot of money. If I draw talismans and sell them, will I be caught as a fraud? I don't know if there are cultivators on Earth. Otherwise, it would be good to build arrays for them to make money. Or refine pills and sell them. For the whole night, Tan Xiu was thinking of ways to make money. In the end, he found that the ways to make money that he was proud of in the immortal world were simply not suitable on Earth. Boss, even if we fail the exam, it's not a big deal. There are still 2 months before the college entrance examination. If we are willing to work hard, we still have a chance to enter a university. Seeing Tan Xiu frowning and sighing during the evening self-study session, Yuan Chuling thought that Tan Xiu had such a reaction after knowing the results of the monthly exam. Fatty, do you know any good ways to make money? Hearing Yuan Chuling's words, Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. He grabbed Yuan Chuling's arm and asked excitedly. Tan Xiu knew that the reason why he couldn't think of a good way to make money was because he came from the countryside and didn't have any business sense. On the other hand, he had lived in the immortal world for tens of thousands of years and couldn't keep up with the pace of thinking on Earth. However, Yuan Chuling was different. Yuan Chuling's parents were successful businessmen. He grew up in that kind of environment. Under the influence of what he saw and heard, whether it was business sense or business talent, he certainly couldn't be compared to him. Boss, how much money do you want? I can lend it to you. Seeing Tan Xiu's eager look, Yuan Chuling was stunned for a moment and then said in a clear voice. I don't want to borrow money. I want to make money. Tell me what is the most profitable business in the world, or what is the fastest way to make money? Tan Xiu knew that Yuan Chuling had misunderstood his meaning, so he shook his head and said. The fastest way to make money is, of course, to rob a bank or a jewelry store. It's a business with no capital and you can start from scratch. I guarantee that you will make a fortune. Yuan Chuling blurted out without thinking. Hearing Yuan Chuling's words, Tan Xiu couldn't help but roll his eyes and then fiercely slapped Yuan Chuling's shoulder and snappily said, Be serious, I'm asking you for advice. If you don't want to rob or dare not rob, then you can only buy lottery tickets, which can also make you a billionaire overnight. But this depends entirely on luck and is too illusory. There is also stock speculation, but stock speculation requires a huge amount of capital as support, and you also need to spend enough time and energy to study it. Obviously, it's not suitable for you. Tan Xiu, if you want to make money, just tell me. I know a lot of ways to make money. Now the most suitable way for you to make money is to become the top student in this year's provincial college entrance examination. As long as you can become the top student in our Shuangqing province, all kinds of bonuses and endorsements will definitely come rolling in. Ordinary people can't earn so much money in their lifetime. When Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling were chatting happily, a voice interrupted their conversation. Tan Xiao looked up and found that the speaker was Su Xiangfei. He frowned and subconsciously wanted to beat someone up. However, Su Xiangfei's words made his heart palpitate. Tan Xiao suppressed the anger in his heart and asked Yuan Chuling, "Fatty, is the top student in Shuangqing province really as profitable as he said?" "Boss, the top student in the provincial college entrance examination is definitely valuable. The key is that we can't get the top student in the provincial college entrance examination. Our Xingqing No. 1 high school hasn't gotten the top student in the provincial college entrance examination for 13 years. If you can get the top student in the provincial college entrance examination, it is estimated that our school can reward you with millions of cash." Under Tan Xiao's inquiring eyes, Yuan Chuling nodded bitterly. "Ha, I'm dying of laughter. He actually wants to be the top student in the college entrance examination. AI, it seems that the rumors are true. Tan Xiao's brain really has a problem. Before the exam, he said that he wanted to be the top student in the grade, and now he said that he wants to be the top student in the provincial college entrance examination. Maybe in a few days, he will announce that he will rush out of the universe." Seeing the serious look on Tan Xiao's face, Su Xiangfei and the other students of class 10 couldn't help but laugh. Yuan Chuling on the side blushed with shame. Even Qing Yannan, who was sitting in front of Tan Xiao, couldn't help but frown. Only Tan Xiao sat in the same place with a calm face. He didn't even move his buttocks. He just glanced at the students around him who were laughing. His eyes were like an ancient well without ripples, as if the one being laughed at wasn't him. "Tan Xiao, the English test papers and the math test papers have been issued in advance. How many points did you get in these two subjects? Are they all salted duck eggs?" After laughing for a long time, Su Xiangfei asked breathlessly. "Have the monthly test papers been issued?" "I don't know." Tan Xiao looked around blankly, and then found that everyone's desk really had the monthly test papers. Tan Xiao then realized something. Because he was too focused on thinking about making money, he didn't notice that the English test papers and the math test papers had been issued in advance. "Fatty, did you see my monthly test papers?" Tan Xiao turned over his desk and looked at the ground. After not finding his monthly test papers, he couldn't help but ask Yuan Chuling on the side. "Boss, I didn't see your monthly test papers. I thought you put them away." Yuan Chuling's voice was as soft as a mosquito. After the papers were issued, all of Yuan Chuling's attention was on the bright red dazzling results. He didn't pay attention to whether Tan Xiao got the monthly test papers or not. However, based on Yuan Chuling's understanding of Tan Xiao, he didn't think that Tan Xiao was acting. Instead, he knew that Tan Xiao might not have gotten his monthly test papers. Therefore, Yuan Chuling was also confused and puzzled. "Ha, I'm dying of laughter. Before the exam, you vowed to get the first place in the grade. Now, you don't even dare to take out your monthly test papers. Could it be that I was right? Did you get salted duck eggs for the English test and the math test?" Seeing Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling's pretentious look, Su Xiangfei couldn't help but laugh again. Handing in the paper and leaving in less than half an hour for each exam. Almost the whole school knows that such a talent has appeared in our class. I really don't know what you're talking about. Stealing the limelight and making a fool of yourself. Now you're pretending to be crazy. Tan Xiao, you're not embarrassed enough in class 5. You actually came to our class 10 to make a fool of yourself. You're really thick-skinned. Under the lead of Su Xiangfei, the students of class 10 ridiculed Tan Xiao to the extreme. They surrounded Tan Xiao, accusing and ridiculing him. They were just short of pointing at Tan Xiao's nose and cursing him. "Tan Xiao, come out." Just when Yuan Chuling couldn't help but come out, a crisp and sweet voice suddenly sounded at the classroom door. Hearing this extremely familiar and dignified voice, the clamor in the classroom stopped abruptly. Many people even quickly returned to their seats, took out a pen and paper, and pretended to calculate. Chapter 22. It was Han Qingwu who suddenly appeared at the door of the classroom. After more than a year, Han Qingwu had completely established her prestige in Class 10, making the students in Class 10 love and respect her. Tan Xiu, do you know why the teacher called you out? Outside the corridor, Han Qingwu was silent for a moment and asked softly. If my guess is correct, it should be because of the monthly test, right? With Tan Xiu's brain that was far faster than ordinary people, almost at the moment when Han Qingwu called out to him, he understood what was going on and naturally knew how to deal with it. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, Han Qingwu fell into silence again. She just stared at Tan Xiu with a pair of beautiful eyes without blinking. At the beginning, Tan Xiu was still looking at Han Qingwu, his eyes were full of flirting. After a long while, Tan Xiu was finally defeated. Han Qingwu's eyes were too pure, so pure that it was not tainted by the slightest bit of smoke and fire. Tan Xiu simply could not bear to desecrate the other party's purity. Miss Han, my English test paper and math test paper were deducted by you? After seeing my test results, you think that I cheated on the test, but you don't want me to make a fool of myself in front of the whole class, so you want to cover for me? Although Han Qingwu did not say a word, Tan Xiu read Han Qingwu's eyes. You didn't really cheat, did you? Hearing Tan Xiu's words, Han Qingwu's delicate body trembled, and a look of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Teacher, do you still remember what I said to you before the test? Tan Xiu did not answer Han Qingwu's question, but instead said something irrelevant. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, Han Qingwu's delicate white face quickly turned red. She clearly remembered that the night before the test, Tan Xiu not only kissed her, but also deliberately tempted her with words, so that she said that she would protect and take care of Tan Xiu for the rest of his life. Miss Han, before the test, I said that I would take this monthly test seriously and make sure that Hu Qiusheng would regret it, and his intestines would turn green from regret. Don't tell me you forgot. Seeing Han Qingwu's gorgeous face, Tan Xiu knew that Han Qingwu had misunderstood, so he reminded her with a smile. Do you still remember that you said that? Then why did you make such a big fuss in this monthly test? It's fine if you sat in the exam room and cried in a daze during the language test, but why did you leave in less than half an hour every time after the test? You really disappointed me. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, Han Qingwu's heart was filled with anger, and her voice unconsciously increased by more than 10 decibels. Hearing this, Tan Xiu smiled bitterly. He couldn't help but touch his nose, and his face was full of embarrassment. Miss Han, the process isn't important. What's important is the result. As long as the result is good, everything will be fine, right? Tan Xiu pointed his mouth in the direction of the classroom and said softly. Good result my ass, your score is too fake. The language test is 140 points, the English test is 150 points, the mathematics test is 150 points, and the science comprehensive test is also 272 points. Your total score is 712 points. Yang Jian, who has been the top of the monthly test for years, only got 633 points this time. You're 79 points higher than him. This means that I'm better than him. Miss Han should be happy. Why do you look so angry? Tan Xiu asked puzzledly. I'm very happy, I'm simply too happy. But Hu Qiusheng, that bastard, said that you cheated in the test. When I insisted on checking the surveillance video of the exam room, he said that someone leaked the questions. He didn't believe that you could get such a result. Let alone him, no one in the whole third grade believed that you could get such a result. Seeing that Tan Xiu really didn't seem to realize the seriousness of the problem, Han Qingwu couldn't help but roar. Teacher, calm down. You need to calm down. Seeing that not only a few heads popped out from his class to watch the fun, but also a few people in the neighboring class were attracted by Han Qingwu's voice, Tan Xiu quickly reminded. Calm your ass. Now, Hu Qiusheng insists that the reason why you got such a good result was entirely because you had read the test paper in advance. He even insinuated that I was a sore loser and deliberately leaked the test paper to you. Tell me, what should I do about this matter? Han Qingwu glared at Tang Xiu fiercely and asked for help in a flirtatious manner. Han Qingwu didn't realize that her performance at this time was completely out of control. Han Qingwu didn't act like a teacher in front of Tan Xiu. Instead, they were more like a pair of friends who got along with each other equally. What, he's actually so shameless. Tan Xiu obviously didn't think that his sudden outburst would achieve such a counterproductive effect. It wasn't that Tan Xiu didn't think of hiding his strength before. He wanted to improve his exam results little by little. This seemed natural, and it was easier for everyone to believe him. However, as long as Tan Xiu thought of Hu Qiusheng's snobbish face, he felt angry. Not to mention, there was also a group of people like Yang Jian and Su Xiangfei who ridiculed him. This made Tan Xiu suddenly change his mind. Even if his score wasn't high or low, as long as his results improved, he would definitely be suspected of plagiarism and cheating. Instead of having an average score and being suspected of plagiarism and cheating, it would be better to directly reach the sky in a single step so that others wouldn't suspect him of plagiarism and cheating. His exam results were the highest in the whole grade. Who could he plagiarize? After listening to Han Qingwu's narration, Tan Xiu realized that for a noble person, even if you shot him in the back, he would only suspect that the gun had gone off by accident. For a shameless person, no matter how well you did, he would still find all kinds of reasons to discredit you. Tan Xiu, if you promise to the teacher that your exam results are real, I have a way to clear your name and make that bastard Hu Qiusheng apologize to you. Seeing Tan Xiu's excited face, a strange look suddenly flashed in Han Qingwu's eyes. She suddenly believed Tan Xiu's words. Han Qingwu said this sentence in English. Although she believed Tan Xiu's words, Han Qingwu still couldn't help but want to test Tan Xiu to see if Tan Xiu's results had really reached the level of first in the grade as he said. Miss Han, in fact, what I want to tell you is that after the car accident, although there was something wrong with my brain, my grades didn't fall. It was just that I became tired of exams, so my grades became so bad. Do you believe me? Tan Xiu knew that it was a bit exaggerated for him to improve from the last place to the first place in a month, so he simply made up a lie. Of course, this sentence of Tan Xiu was also said in English. Seeing that Tan Xiu not only fully understood the English content of what she said, but also spoke to her in authentic and fluent American English, Han Qingwu's eyes instantly lit up. Tan Xiu, are you sure you're not joking with the teacher? After a moment of absent-mindedness, Han Qingwu reacted to the content of Tan Xiu's words, and she couldn't help but be overjoyed. Miss Han, I can lie to you for a while, but I can't lie to you forever. Whether what I said is true or false, won't you know in the next 2 monthly tests? Tan Xiu blinked and said with a smile. Good, that's great. I can already imagine the scene of Hu Qiusheng regretting and vomiting blood tomorrow. Getting a positive answer from Tan Xiu's mouth, Han Qingwu couldn't help but laugh, then she handed Tan Xiu's English test paper and mathematics test paper to Tan Xiu. After receiving the test paper, Tan Xiu walked into the classroom, and Han Qingwu left with a relaxed body. Almost as soon as Tan Xiu stepped into the classroom, the bell for the end of the evening self-study session sounded above the school. The school that was just quiet was like a lake that was thrown into a boulder, instantly boiling up. Tan Xiu simply tidied up the desk and quietly left the school. Before Yuan Chuling said a lot of ways to make money, although Yuan Chuling himself didn't think it was reliable, but it was heard by Tan Xiu. Of course, this time Tan Xiu didn't go out to rob, nor to buy lottery tickets, nor to speculate in the stock market. Half an hour later, Tan Xiu's figure appeared in a game hall called Health and Prosperity Club. Tan Xiu always knew the existence of this game hall, and even passed by this game hall many times, but he never came in. He only knew that there were a lot of boys in the school who were obsessed with the game hall, and often contributed their pocket money to the game hall, and they also enjoyed it. Just stepping into the game hall, Tan Xiu couldn't help but cover his nose, a pair of good-looking sword-like eyebrows also wrinkled. Because the game hall was noisy, filled with smoke, and the stench was overwhelming, it was completely different from the outside world, making Tan Xiu almost suffocated. But thinking of his own goal, Tan Xiu still resisted the urge to run out. The game hall was a full 400 square meters, and it was filled with slot machines, all kinds of different types of slot machines. There were a total of 6 rows, a total of more than 100 slot machines. Almost every slot machine was surrounded by a few people, or even more than a dozen people. The small game hall unexpectedly gathered thousands of people. Tan Xiu was surprised to find that among these thousands of people, there were actually less than half of them wearing school uniforms. Most of them were from nearby schools. Compared to minors, gambling machines are too deceptive. A lot of minors at the beginning think that they are playing games, and end up addicted to it, neglecting their studies. This game hall is opened in the middle of the downtown area, and completely does not prohibit students from entering. The influence is too bad. Silently watching the crazy scene in the game hall, Tan Xiu developed a disgust towards the game hall. Tan Xiu did not immediately start, but silently observed the play of the slot machine. There were a lot of such people in the game hall, so Tan Xiu's behavior did not attract anyone's attention. After a full hour, Tan Xiu exchanged 10 coins from the hands of the waiter, and then lined up behind a slot machine. The basic operation of the slot machine is very simple. Insert the coins and then pull down the handle. If the symbols arranged in the middle of the frame match, you can get a bonus. The amount of money is related to the probability of the symbol appearing. Sometimes, even if it doesn't match, jumping out of a specific symbol can also have a certain reward. This symbol is usually a cherry. Sometimes, the machine will set a universal symbol, which can match any other symbol. The reward of this universal symbol is greater than the usual reward. However, it is very difficult to make money through the slot machine. Tan Xiu observed for an hour. Basically, the people playing the slot machine have no money. Even if someone occasionally won a small amount, he will soon lose the money he won. After an hour of observation, with Tan Xiu's brain operating speed which is far superior to ordinary people, Tan Xiu is already familiar with the return of each slot machine. At the same time, he also knows the rule of each slot machine. Tan Xiu, it's really you. I thought I was mistaken. You don't have money to pay the tuition, but you have money to come to the game hall to play the slot machine. You are really amazing. Seeing that it was Tan Xiu's turn, a fussy shout suddenly sounded in Tan Xiu's ear, making Tan Xiu have no choice but to withdraw his attention from the slot machine. Chapter 23. The person who suddenly appeared next to Tan Xiu was Su Xiangfei. Xingqing No. 1 High School deliberately increased the difficulty of the monthly test questions in order to increase the learning pressure of the third-year students. Therefore, the students of Xingqing No. 1 High School didn't do well in this monthly test. Su Xiangfei's original grades were only average. After the results of this monthly test came out, he wanted to cry but had no tears. Only when he found out that the average grades of the students in his class were on the low side, did he feel relieved. Even so, after Su Xiangfei saw his own results, his mood still fell into an unprecedented low. With great difficulty, he endured until the end of the morning self-study session. He immediately pulled 2 classmates to the Health and Prosper Club to vent. Su Xiangfei didn't expect that he would meet an acquaintance in the game hall. Moreover, this acquaintance was the most unlikely person to appear in this kind of place. Tan Xiu just glanced at Su Xiangfei and then withdrew his gaze. Because the person in front of Tan Xiu in the queue had already used up all his game coins. It was his turn to play the slot machine. Tan Xiu didn't want to delay his plan to make money because of Su Xiangfei. Although all the slot machine programs had been preset, and the results were also random, it was difficult to find a way to win for sure. However, after careful observation and careful calculation, Tan Xiu found that there were still some ways to increase the chance of winning the big prize, or at least to win a certain return. In most cases, when a machine had already put a corresponding amount of game coins into it, it would win the prize. Moreover, it was very likely to get a cumulative prize pool. With Tan Xiu's financial ability, he naturally couldn't put in so many game coins alone. However, this didn't prevent him from winning the prize. After all, there were so many people queuing up to play slot machines in the game hall, and those people were obviously just there to vent or to try their luck. They didn't read the table of prizes, let alone study the probability of winning and the rate of return. Tan Xiu, on the other hand, spent an entire hour studying the lottery table. At the same time, he memorized the accumulated game coins of the hundreds of slot machines in the game hall by heart. When he silently observed and calculated the number of people queuing in front of the slot machine and the amount of game coins they might have in their hands, Tan Xiu decisively chose to queue in front of this slot machine. When the people in front of Tan Xiu finished spending their game coins, Tan Xiu breathed a sigh of relief. As long as there was a slight deviation in Tan Xiu's calculation, then the cumulative prize pool of this slot machine would have nothing to do with him. Because he only needed to put another 5 game coins into the slot machine would win the prize. For fear of being cut in line, almost as soon as the people in front of him left, Tan Xiu did not hesitate to put a game coin into the slot machine, and then pressed the spin button. Under Tan Xiu's action, the patterns in the 3 glass frames in the slot machine rotated rapidly. If a specific pattern appeared, it would spit out money. The more identical patterns appeared, the higher the prize. After a few seconds, the pattern stopped rotating, but the slot machine didn't make any sound. "Ha, you country bumpkin, why are you moving so fast? Have you never played slot machines before? Playing slot machines isn't about movements, it's about luck." Seeing that Tan Xiu's game coin had gone to waste, Su Xiangfei couldn't help but burst into laughter at the side. Tan Xiu didn't even bother to look at Su Xiangfei. He threw another game coin in and pressed the spin button again. A few seconds later, the pattern stopped rotating again, and then the slot machine still didn't make any sound. "I say, buddy, this machine seems to be broken. It only swallows money and doesn't spit out money. I've been watching it for half an hour, and I haven't seen it spit out a single game coin. I say, don't waste your game coins on this slot machine." Seeing that Tan Xiu didn't have any reaction after putting in coins twice in a row, a person next to him reminded him loudly. Tan Xiu looked at the other person gratefully, and then continued to take out the game coins from his trouser pocket. "Tan Xiu, is there something wrong with your brain? People said that this machine has a problem, and you still throw money into this machine. Do you have too much money and nowhere to throw it?" Su Xiangfei clearly saw Tan Xiu's reaction and couldn't help but mutter. Tan Xiu didn't pay attention to Su Xiangfei, but continued to put game coins into the slot. This time, Tan Xiu didn't immediately press the spin button, but pressed the raise button, and then put a coin in again. After repeating this twice, Tan Xiu's finger was placed on the spin button. The most exciting part of the slot machine is the jackpot. Not every slot machine game has a jackpot. Generally, if you play the English version of the casino game, if you see progressive slot, there is a jackpot. If you want to win the jackpot, you have to bet 3 chips each time. Once you win the jackpot, then all the game coins in the slot machine will be spit out. The reason why Tan Xiu put 2 game coins in the front is that he wanted to get the biggest bet at the most appropriate time. Sure enough, there's something wrong with his brain, and it's not a light one. Let's go over there to play. Looking at this idiot makes me nervous. Su Xiangfei saw that Tan Xiu ignored him again and again. He was so angry that after muttering, he turned around and walked away. The next moment, Su Xiangfei stood motionless in the same place as if someone had cast a spell on him. Almost at the moment when Su Xiangfei turned around, he heard a crisp jingle in his ears. Su Xiangfei, who often played in the game hall, knew that this was a jackpot, and listening to the sound, it was a lot of jackpot. Subconsciously, Tan Xiu's 2 consecutive raises flashed in Su Xiangfei's mind. Cumulative prize pool, he actually won the cumulative prize pool. An absurd thought emerged in Su Xiangfei's mind, causing him to subconsciously exclaim out loud. When the slot machine issued a crisp, ding-dang sound, not only was Su Xiangfei stunned, but the people who were standing around the slot machine to watch the show were also stunned. Because this time, the slot machine's jingle was a little too long. The movement made by the slot machine was so big that not only other people who were playing games nearby were attracted, but also the owner of the game hall. What's wrong? What happened? Did someone break my machine? A chubby middle-aged man shouted as he squeezed himself in front of the slot machine. When the middle-aged man saw the game coins all over the ground, his mouth twitched, and then he laughed and said, "Congratulations, little brother, this machine hasn't made a jackpot for a month, and you actually have good luck. This time, you probably won tens of thousands, right?" In the face of the owner's warm smile, Tan Xiu was extremely uncomfortable. Shouldn't the other party show a very painful look at this time, or simply say that there was a problem with the slot machine, and then deny that he won a lot of game coins? The next moment, Tan Xiu immediately understood the reason. Because after the owner spoke to Tan Xiu with a smile on his face, he immediately turned his head to the people in the game hall. "Everyone can see, our Health and Prosper Club's slot machine has 100% no problem. The investment is small, and the profit is big. It's simply a small capital with big profits. Apart from robbery, there is no other business that can make more money than this." Hearing the words of the owner of the game hall, Tan Xiu sneered in his heart. According to Tan Xiu's observation, the slot machines in the game hall had obviously been tampered with by the owner. Not only the odds were pitifully low, but the winning rate was also very low. The reason why the slot machine Tan Xiu was playing with was that there were too many people playing the slot machine today, and it was already beyond the owner's control. Under the owner's extremely tempting bewitchment, the game hall instantly flared up. The people who originally only intended to watch the excitement also ran to the bar to buy game coins. The people who originally only intended to buy a small amount of game coins to test the waters did not hesitate to increase their purchases. As for the hardcore players who were addicted to playing, they waved a lot of money and ran to the bar. For a time, the owner of the game hall's face bloomed with a smile. Only 18,000 yuan, the owner of this game hall is really stingy. After Tan Xiu clearly counted the game coins in his hand, he couldn't help but curl his lips, and then went to the bar to exchange the game coins for money. However, Tan Xiu did not convert all the game coins into money at once, but left more than 100 game coins, and continued to play in the game hall. "Brother, don't you have game coins? I'll give you some, thank you for reminding me just now." Inadvertently passing by a slot machine, Tan Xiu saw someone sighing in annoyance, and was preparing to leave the slot machine. Tan Xiu was happy, and then threw 20 game coins to the other side. The reason why Tan Xiu remembered this person so vividly, was because this person was bald, and also because there were so many people watching him at that time. Only the bald man was kind enough to remind him. "Ha, it's you, thank you brother, if I win the money, I'll give you half." The bald man obviously didn't expect that good news would fall from the sky. After seeing that it was Tan Xiu, he very straightforwardly took the game coins, and then excitedly played. The bald man's game addiction was obviously very big. Almost every time he played, he placed the biggest bet. Only 6 times, he threw all the game coins that Tan Xiu gave him into the slot machine. Just when the bald man thought that this time he was giving money to the game hall owner for nothing, there was suddenly a crisp sound from the slot machine, and the next moment, the game coins were spat out. This, ha, I'm rich." Looking at the game coins all over the ground, the bald man cheered, and then directly rushed over. Although the game coins that the bald man won this time were not as many as the game coins that Tan Xiu won, there were still 4,000 game coins. Not only did he win back all the money that he lost during this time, but he also had a slight surplus, which naturally made him excited. Of course, the bald man was most happy that he finally won money from the game hall, instead of losing like a bottomless pit, and the anger in his heart had been vented. "Brother, these game coins are all yours, let's continue to play." The bald man casually grabbed a handful of game coins, and then pushed the rest of the game coins to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu wanted to refuse, but found that the bald man instantly disappeared. He had no choice but to put away all the game coins, and then went to the front desk to exchange a large number of game coins for paper money. Behind Tan Xiu, Su Xiangfei was dumbfounded. It must be known that Su Xiangfei usually came to the Health and Prosper Club, and he almost contributed all his pocket money to the game hall. Although Su Xiangfei could sometimes win some game coins, he would soon lose them again. However, in just a few minutes when Su Xiangfei watched and followed Tan Xiu won nearly 20,000 game coins, and also received thousands of game coins, which made Su Xiangfei very jealous. Chapter 24. Not only Su Xiangfei was dumbfounded, but the other two classmates behind Su Xiangfei were also dumbfounded. Tan Xiu really went out and stepped on a dog's ass. He can actually win so much money in the game hall. I have been to the game hall many times, but this is the first time I saw someone win so much money in the game hall. This is called a fool's fortune. If Tan Xiu's brain is normal, he won't be able to win so much money. Su Duanxin and Tan Lichuan looked at Tan Xiu with envy. They wished that the one who just won the money was not Tan Xiu, but themselves. What is there to be envious about Tan Xiu? His grades are at the bottom of the whole grade, and there is a problem with his brain. Not only will he not be able to enter a university, but his future life will also be a problem. Do you think that this 20,000 yuan can let him eat and drink for the rest of his life? Su Xiangfei glared at the two followers, and said disdainfully. What Su Xiangfei did not notice was that when he spoke, his words were mixed with a sour taste. Although Tan Xiu also noticed the existence of Su Xiangfei and the other two classmates, and even heard their discussion about him, but Tan Xiu did not take their words to heart, or rather, Tan Xiu did not have the time to pay attention to them. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu's eyes locked on the slot machine in the innermost part of the hall. According to the rule of this slot machine, it needs to swallow at least hundreds of game coins before it can spit out the game coins, but Tan Xiu had already calculated the odds of this slot machine, 100 game coins for 8,000 game coins. It seems to be a very good deal. Tan Xiu muttered to himself, and then slowly stood behind the slot machine to queue up. If Tan Xiu had just entered the game hall, he would certainly be reluctant to spend 100 yuan to play slot machines. But today, Tan Xiu had won 18,000 yuan, and then was given more than 3,000 game coins, so he didn't care about that 100 yuan. Tan Xiu had made a lot of noise in the game hall before, so it attracted a lot of people's attention. So when Tan Xiu began to put in the coins again, many people subconsciously surrounded Tan Xiu. Even the trio headed by Su Xiangfei was no exception. Tan Xiu didn't care about the onlookers. He just slowly stuffed the game coins into the slot machine and then pressed the spin button. In the beginning, everyone had high hopes for Tan Xiu. They thought that since Tan Xiu could win once or twice, he could definitely win a third time. But when everyone saw that the slot machine did not make any sound after Tan Xiu continuously put in the coins for more than 20 times, the crowd gradually dispersed. I thought a god of gamblers came. I didn't expect him to try his luck. We thought too much. Playing slot machines is all about luck. There is no skill to speak of. If he could win money with skill, the boss would lose a lot of money. Pretending to be so mysterious, as if the god of gamblers was reincarnated. What a waste of my feelings. Hearing the voices of discussion and complaints coming into his ears, Tan Xiu's mouth slightly raised, and his face also showed a playful smile, because this was the effect he wanted. It must be known that among the onlookers just now, there were not only real onlookers, but also a few of the game hall's staff mixed in. They obviously wanted to see him win money. As Tan Xiu lost the game tokens again and again, no one would doubt Tan Xiu's previous win. However, this incident also rang the alarm bell for Tan Xiu. This game parlor was obviously not as generous as the boss showed on the surface. On the contrary, the game parlor was very stingy, and the background of the game parlor seemed to be quite complicated. When Tan Shio put 113 game tokens into the slot machine finally let out a happy cheer, and then a large number of game tokens sprayed out. Damn, it can't be, did he hit the jackpot again? How can he be so good? Counting the time when Baldi won the lottery, this guy has won the lottery 3 times today. This luck is really against the heavens. After Tan Shio won the lottery, the crowd that had just dispersed once again gathered around him, and everyone looked at him with fiery eyes. If Tan Shio's first win was luck, and Tan Shio helping Baldi win the lottery was a coincidence, then Tan Shio's third win was definitely not something that luck and coincidence could explain. Boss, you are my boss from now on, please teach me how to play the slot machine. When Tan Shio was not in a hurry to collect the game tokens, Baldi suddenly squeezed out from the crowd. He grabbed Tan Shio's arm and implored excitedly. It turned out that when Tan Shio was playing the slot machine, Baldi had already lost the dozens of game tokens that he had casually grabbed before. Suddenly seeing Tan Shio win the lottery again, Baldi was immediately shocked by Tan Shio, and did not hesitate to pester Tan Shio. Baldi's friendly behavior made Tan Shio frown subconsciously. He was a little regretful that he had helped Baldi just now. However, Baldi's generosity and straightforwardness made Tan Shio quite admire him, so he did not make things difficult for Baldi, but smiled and joked, "You entering the casino with a bald head, you will definitely lose all your money. If you can grow your hair, you will definitely win." After saying that, without waiting for Baldi to reply, Tan Shio got up and left. Behind Tan Shio, Baldi touched his bald head and looked at Tan Shio's back as he left. His face showed a thoughtful expression. I won 30,000 yuan in this game hall, should I continue to play, or stop while I'm ahead? After changing the more than 8,000 game tokens in his hand into real money, Tan Shio glanced at the nervous game hall owner. He fell into a dilemma. Little brother, this is a little token of my appreciation, please accept it. Before Tan Shio could make up his mind, Li Konglong, the owner of the game hall, quickly took out a stack of banknotes from the drawer and handed it to Tan Shio. His face was also full of a pleading look. Tan Shio froze for a moment, then immediately understood the other party's thoughts. Are you insulting me, or are you insulting yourself? Glancing at the banknotes in the other party's hand, Tan Shio said disdainfully. Because the stack of banknotes in the hands of the game hall owner was too thin, with Tan Shio's eyesight, he could easily judge that the banknotes in the other party's hand did not exceed 2,000 yuan. If Tan Shio continued to play in the game hall, he could completely sweep the entire game hall. At that time, it would not be a matter of 2,000 yuan, even 102,000 yuan would be possible. However, the game hall owner actually wanted to use 2,000 yuan to send him away, which made the unbearable feeling in Tan Shio's heart disappear without a trace, and instead gave birth to a trace of anger. Brat, if you know what's good for you, then take the money our boss gave you and leave. If you don't know what's good for you, then not only will you leave behind all the money you won in the game hall, you will also have to stay here. Just as Tan Shio's voice faded away, a gloomy voice suddenly sounded in his ear. Tan Shio looked in the direction of the voice and found that a tattooed youth was staring at him like a tiger watching its prey, with a ferocious look on his face. Next to the tattooed youth stood a few non-mainstream youths. These people's hairstyle was strange, and their clothes were very exaggerated. They faintly blocked the door of the game hall, surrounding Tan Shio in the middle. Boss, are you sure this is how you treat your guests? Tan Shio saw the proud look on the boss's face. He asked sharply. Why, do you have a problem? Li Konglong sneered. I originally wanted to quit while I was ahead, but since the boss is so unreasonable, then I have to continue to play. Seeing the game hall owner's appearance, Tan Shio could not help but sneer, then turned and walked towards the center of the game hall. The few non-mainstream youths just blocked the door of the game hall. They did not think that Tan Shio would still have the mood to continue to play the slot machine in this situation, and for a time they could not help but be stunned. It was not until Tan Shio hid in the crowd that Li Konglong and the tattooed youth and others reacted to what was going on. What is this kid's background? His guts are quite fat. How come I have never heard of such a character in the underworld? Thinking of Tan Xiu's neither servile nor overbearing appearance, and the words that Tan Xiu said when he turned around and left, Li Konglong's heart suddenly surged with a feeling of uneasiness. "Boss, the ensemble of Heroes Street is our territory, and you are sworn brothers with Wang Hao, the captain of the Municipal Public Security Bureau. Are you afraid of a little kid who is still wet behind the ears?" Hearing the boss's muttering, the tattooed young man said disdainfully. "Who said I'm afraid of him? I'm just curious about this kid's identity. He can talk and laugh wittily under our encirclement, either he is really badass, or he is dumbass, but we have never heard of such a character in the Heroes Street. He is obviously a dumbass. All of you keep an eye on him. If you let him take advantage of the chaos to sneak out, all of you get the hell out of here." Li Konglong fiercely glared at the tattooed youth, then straightened his chest and loudly ordered. On the other side, the bald youth thought for a long time before he realized that Tan Xiu was just joking with him. When he chased to the bar, he just happened to see the scene of Tan Xiu and the game hall owner having a conflict. Inadvertently hearing the conversation between the game hall owner and the group of security guards, the bald youth's face showed a happy smile. "Li Konglong, I heard that you want to deal with my brother." Not waiting for the group of security guards to disperse, the bald youth walked to the front of the bar with a smile, and condescendingly greeted Li Konglong. You are young Master Long, how come you have come to visit my small shop?" Hearing someone directly call his name, and the tone was unusually arrogant, Li Konglong couldn't help but carefully look at the person who called out to him. The next moment, Li Konglong's eyes instantly widened, and his face also showed a surprised and excited look. Because the person in front of him had a big background, the other party could decide the life and death of Li Konglong's game hall with just a few words. However, the person in front of him was usually too low-key, so few people in the circle knew of his existence. Even if Li Konglong coincidentally met this person several times, he didn't dare to look at the other party, so he wasn't particularly familiar with this person. If the other party hadn't taken the initiative to call out to Li Konglong, and also stared at him with a playful look in his eyes, Li Konglong absolutely wouldn't have thought that the person in front of him would condescend to play in his game hall. "Young Master Long, you must have made a mistake. Even if you lend me 100 guts, I still wouldn't dare to deal with your brother." Thinking of Long Zhenglin's questioning words, Li Konglong hurriedly apologized. But Li Konglong hadn't finished his words, when Long Zhenglin raised his palm, and ruthlessly slapped Li Konglong's face. "I hate people like you the most, people who can't afford to lose. If the game hall is like you, only allowing people to enter and not leave, then how can we still play?" Long Zhenglin's slap stunned Li Konglong. He didn't think that Long Zhenglin, who usually had a smile on his face like the boy next door, would have such a violent side. "Li Konglong, you better listen to me. The person who came here to exchange money is my brother. He can play however he wants. If you dare to play dirty, I don't mind playing with you." Under Li Konglong's puzzled gaze, Long Zhenglin quickly left after throwing down a sentence. Don't worry. Hearing Long Zhenglin's words, Li Konglong felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and the tattooed youth and the others were also completely dumbfounded. Chapter 25. Boss, what should we do now? After being silent for a long time, the tattooed youth nervously asked Li Konglong. What else can we do? Today, we can only admit defeat and let that high school student play however he wants. Only when he is happy will young Master Long's anger be appeased. Only when young Master Long's anger is appeased can our game hall continue to operate. Thinking of Long Zhenglin's father's influence in Star City, Li Konglong's mouth was full of bitterness. At this moment, Li Konglong really wanted to fiercely slap himself a few times. If he was a bit more generous and willing to give more money to that high school student, then nothing would have happened now. Now, not only did he offend young Master Long, but he might also lose more money. Boss, in case that high school student really researched the slot machine's winning rule, then we will lose a lot of money. It seems that we haven't cleaned the slot machine for nearly a week. The tattooed youth worriedly said. Researched the slot machine's winning rule? You think too much. How could there be such a talent in Star City? If there really is such a powerful person, he would directly go to Macau to gamble. Why would he need to come to my small shop? Hearing the tattooed youth's words, Li Konglong disapproved. Although Li Konglong said that it was impossible for Tan Xiu to research the slot machine's winning rule, but his heart was unusually perturbed. If he was not afraid of the power behind Long Jinglin, Li Konglong would have already driven Tan Xiu out of the game hall. When Li Konglong and his group of people were restless, Tan Xiu unscrupulously made his move. After the previous 3 winning rule events, Tan Xiu had become famous in the Health and Prosper Club. Almost every time Tan Xiu went in front of a slot machine, someone would give up their position for Tan Xiu and let Tan Xiu perform the unique skill of controlling the slot machine to spray the game coins. There were also some people who saw Tan Xiu queuing up behind them and thought that the slot machine would definitely win the prize, so they stayed in their position and refused to leave. Tan Xiu just smiled and didn't speak. Then, without hesitation, he went to queue up in front of other slot machines, making the other party feel embarrassed and at a loss. Because the bad behavior of the game hall angered Tan Xiu, in the following time, Tan Xiu acted unscrupulously, no longer caring about the feelings of the game hall. Then, the people in the arcade witnessed the scene of slot machines spewing out game coins one after another. 3 game coins went in, and 12,000 game coins came out. 17 game coins went in, and 6,000 game coins came out. 99 game coins went in, and 22,000 game coins came out. In just half an hour, Tan Xiu had swept more than half of the slot machines in the arcade. Every slot machine had given Tan Xiu thousands to tens of thousands of game coins. The most he had earned was more than 20,000 game coins. Those players who stayed in the slot machines and refused to give up their position were puzzled. Although they eventually won the lottery, the odds were pitifully low. Then, they put all the game coins they had won into the slot machines, but they still didn't win the lottery. When they realized that even if they occupied the slot machines, they wouldn't be able to make money, no one tried to play tricks to take advantage of Tan Xiu. The people in the game hall also admired Tan Xiu from the bottom of their hearts. In the end, all the players in the game hall were alarmed by Tan Xiu. They didn't care about their own slot machines, but swarmed behind Tan Xiu. Wherever Tan Xiu went, they followed. They wanted to see whether Tan Xiu could continue the miracle. When Tan Xiu had swept away more than 100,000 game coins in the game hall, Li Konglong almost cried. One must know that although the game hall's profits were very big, he had no way to swallow all the profits. In fact, Li Konglong was only the boss of the game hall on the surface. Most of the shares in his hands were held by others. So once he lost too badly, not only would he be fired as the boss, he would even have to pay out of his own pocket to make up for the deficit. But in the face of Long Jinglin's threat, Li Konglong didn't dare to make any move. If the game hall lost money, Li Konglong would at most have to put in some money. But if Li Konglong dared to ignore Long Jinglin, he would have to pay with his life. At this moment, Li Konglong regretted his actions so much that his face was green and his heart was bleeding. Li Konglong regretted being too stingy, and regretted being too strong in front of Tan Xiu. If Long Jinglin allowed it, Li Konglong couldn't wait to run to Tan Xiu and kneel down, begging Tan Xiu to stop playing. But in the face of Long Jinglin's threatening smile, Li Konglong simply didn't dare to approach Tan Xiu, let alone apologize to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu is simply too powerful. No wonder he was able to do so well in the senior high school entrance exam, always occupying the first place in his grade, and even brought back so many Olympic medals for the school. That's not right. Didn't Brother Fei say that Tan Xiu has a mental problem? With Tan Xiu's performance just now, this can't be explained by luck. I'm sure that Tan Xiu absolutely calculated the rules and odds of the slot machine. Su Duanxin and Tan Lichuan glanced at Su Xiangfei, whose complexion had turned abnormally ugly, and whispered to each other. Do you think that Tan Xiu is very smart? Are you envious of Tan Xiu for winning so much money? Seeing Su Duanxin and Tan Lichuan's envious expression, Su Xiangfei disdainfully smiled and said, "I still insist that there's a problem with his brain. You might as well think about it. To be able to operate such a big game parlor in Star City's most prosperous Grand Heroes Street, how could the game parlor's boss be simple? If Tan Xiu is allowed to go on like this, where would the game parlor's boss put his face? Tan Xiu has a life to earn money, but he doesn't have a life to spend it." Su Xiangfei looked at the complacent Tan Xiu, and his eyes couldn't help but flash with pity. After listening to Su Xiangfei's analysis, Su Duanxin and Tan Lichuan couldn't help but be awed. In the next moment, they no longer looked at Tan Xiu with envy and jealousy, but with pity and sympathy. Su Duanxin and Tan Lichuan knew that the world was definitely not as clean as it looked on the surface. Therefore, no matter how much money Tan Xiu had won at this moment, it was impossible for him to take it out of the game parlor. If Tan Xiu was sensible and was willing to hand over all the game coins, he could still walk out of the game parlor in one piece. But if Tan Xiu was not sensible, then it was estimated that Tan Xiu's fate would be very miserable. Therefore, no matter how much money Tan Xiu had won at this time, it was all in vain. What Su Duanxin and Tan Lichuan didn't know was that at this time, although Su Xiangfei thought that Tan Xiu would not be able to walk out of the game parlor, but he had already determined one thing, that is, Tan Xiu's mind had already returned to normal, and had even become more important than before the car accident. Moreover, Tan Xiu's confident look and his unscrupulous behavior also made Su Xiangfei's heart awed. Su Xiangfei faintly had a feeling that Tan Xiu was fearless in winning big in the game parlor. The other party should have already thought of a way out. Otherwise, there was no reason that he could think of something that the other party could not think of. Another half an hour passed, and the slot machines in the game parlor were basically swept clean by Tan Xiu. At this time, Tan Xiu impressively won 470,000 yuan. Any game will have a time when you are tired of playing, not to mention that Tan Xiu came to the game parlor not to play, but to win money. When Tan Xiu did not wait for the people of the game parlor to come and deal with him, he took all the game coins he had won and went to the front desk to exchange them for money. Seeing the direction in which Tan Xiu was heading, the game parlor instantly fell into silence, and everyone's heart was in their throat. Everyone knew that the Real show was coming. Even if Tan Xiu had won a lot of game coins before, if he had no way to exchange the game coins for money, then his previous efforts would have been in vain. Everyone thought that it would be impossible for the game parlor to exchange for money for Tan Xiu, or that it would be impossible for Tan Xiu to leave the game parlor safely. The game parlor's boss not only did not obstruct or make things difficult for Tan Xiu, but also personally apologized with a smile on his face, and personally delivered all the coins into the hands of Tan Xiu, and then nodded and bowed as he respectfully sent Tan Xiu out of the game parlor. Clearly seeing the scene of the game parlor's boss nodding and bowing to Tan Xiu, everyone in the game parlor's jaws dropped to the ground. Each and every one of them thought that their eyes had a problem, or that they were in a dream, and stood in the same place for a long time without being able to react to what was going on. Even Tan Xiu himself felt inexplicable. He had been mentally prepared to solve the problem with violence, but he did not think that the game parlor would let him out. How could this be? How could the game parlor's boss let Tan Xiu go out? It must be that the game parlor's boss was worried that it would have a bad impact, so he did not dare to deal with Tan Xiu in the game parlor, but planned to wait for Tan Xiu to go to a remote place, and then deal with Tan Xiu. Yes, it's like this, it's always like this in the movies. Seeing that the script was different from what he had imagined, Su Xiangfei was stunned. Su Duanxin and Tan Lichuan were also waiting to watch a big play, but they found that they did not see a good play, and their whole person was not good. Until they listened to Su Xiangfei's analysis, their hearts felt a little better. Brother Fei, should we quietly follow behind Tan Xiu, and see what will happen to Tan Xiu? After hesitating for a moment, Su Duanxin suggested eagerly. Su Xiangfei's eyes lit up, and without hesitation, he nodded and agreed, and then the three of them quickly chased after him. Outside the game parlor, Tan Xiu had almost just stepped out of the door, when he was entangled by Long Jinglin. Boss, are you short of money? If you are short of money, I have a way to make you rich overnight. After nearly an hour of entanglement, Long Zhenglin had succeeded in getting close to Tan Xiu, and shamelessly worshipped Tan Xiu as his master. Although Tan Xiu did not agree, nor was he willing to acknowledge Long Zhenglin as his younger brother, but Long Zhenglin ignored Tan Xiu's opinion, and insisted on calling Tan Xiu boss. You just took a fancy to my calculating ability, and want me to make money through gambling, but I only won a little more than 30,000 in the Health and Prosper Club, and the other party has their eyes on me. Do you think it's reasonable for me to become rich overnight through gambling? Tan Xiu swept a glance at Long Zhenglin, and snappily said. Boss, how do you know that I want you to go gambling? That's right, your brain is so smart, and you can certainly guess my thoughts using your toes. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, Long Zhenglin couldn't help but be surprised, but remembering Tan Xiu's reaction in the game parlor, Long Zhenglin quickly felt relieved. Boss, if you are confident in your gambling ability, not only do I have a way to make you rich overnight, but I also have a way to make someone owe you a favor. With that person's favor, it will be very convenient for you to do a lot of things in the Shuangqing province. Seeing that Tan Xiu had already guessed his purpose, Long Zhenglin didn't hide it anymore, and said with an excited face. Chapter 26. Long Zhenglin's words made Tan Xiu's eyes lit up as he couldn't help but glance at Long Zhenglin. Tan Xiu could clearly feel that Long Zhenglin wasn't the kind of unscrupulous youth who often fooled around in the game hall. Although Long Zhenglin had been shamelessly pestering him, but his words and actions didn't have the slightest trace of a ruffian. Did you help solve the trouble at the Health and Prosper Club? Tan Xiu's footsteps stopped as he abruptly asked. Long Zhenglin originally wanted to shake his head to deny it, but under Tan Xiu's gaze, he finally told the truth. Eldest brother, the Health and Prosper Club is not doing business properly, so I warned them. But even if I didn't act, eldest brother can solve the problem at the Health and Prosper Club. Did I do something superfluous and spoil eldest brother's mood? Although I can solve the problem at the Health and Prosper Club, but I still owe you a favor. My name is Tan Xiu, Xingqing No. 1 High School's Class 30 student. You can come and find me if you need me. Tan Xiu stared at Long Zhenglin for a moment and finally decided to make this friend. Eldest brother is too polite. My surname is Long, and my name is Feng Ji. I'm from the 1 middle school, and I'm also studying in the 3rd year. When I have free time, I'll definitely go to the 1 middle school to visit eldest brother. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, Long Zhenglin knew that he already had the intention to leave. He didn't dare to continue to pester Tan Xiu. For Long Zhenglin, today, not only did he succeed in getting close to Tan Xiu, but he also knew Tan Xiu's identity, which laid the foundation for further contact. Thus, Long Zhenglin's trip was not in vain. After a simple farewell, Tan Xiu didn't stay for even a moment and quickly left. Silently watching Tan Xiu's back disappearing into the darkness, an excited smile appeared on Long Zhenglin's face. Uncle, we're saved. As long as Tan Xiu takes action, we can definitely take down Walled Hill Village. Long Zhenglin clenched his fists and waved his arms. Then, he got into a roadside sports car and quickly left. I. Holy shit, Long Zhenglin, brother Fei, that's Long Zhenglin. How does Tan Xiu know Long Zhenglin? Moreover, why is he so respectful to Tan Xiu and calls Tan Xiu boss? In a remote corner, Su Duanqin screamed. Could it be that we got the wrong person? Long Zhenglin has a distinguished status, how could he possibly come to the Health and Prosper Club, this kind of filthy place to play? Moreover, he even lowered his voice to an ordinary person. It should be because this person looks similar to Long Zhenglin, and he's pretending to be Long Zhenglin, right? Tan Lichuan's face was also filled with doubt and puzzlement, and he explained with uncertainty. At this time, Su Xiangfei clenched his fists so tightly that his nails had already sunk into his palms. He didn't even notice that his palms were bleeding. Looks can be similar, names can be imitated, but cars can't be imitated. Half a year ago, Su Xiangfei was fortunate enough to accompany his father to participate in Long Jinglin's coming-of-age ceremony. Long Jinglin's family prepared a custom-made Rolls-Royce Phantom for his coming-of-age ceremony. The license plate number was the combination of Long Jinglin's name and his birthday. Whether it was the custom-made Rolls-Royce Phantom, or the exaggerated dazzling license plate number, or the various high-end performances at the banquet, all of them made the guests of the banquet feel dizzy. Especially the boys and girls at the banquet who were almost the same age as Long Jinglin, they felt ashamed of their inferiority as they looked at Long Jinglin with eyes full of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Therefore, while Su Duanxin and Tan Lichuan were still doubting the authenticity of Long Jinglin, Su Xiangfei was almost sure that the bald-headed man a moment ago was Long Jinglin. How could Tan Xiu know Long Jinglin? Moreover, it seems that the relationship between the two is not shallow. This is a troublesome matter. It will be difficult for me to deal with Tan Xiu in the future. Thinking of Long Jinglin's arrogant character, and recalling the scene of Long Jinglin sticking to Tan Xiu a moment ago, Su Xiangfei would never have dreamed that Long Jinglin and Tan Xiu were meeting for the first time. Moreover, it was Long Jinglin who took the initiative to pester Tan Xiu. After leaving the Health and Prosper Club, Tan Xiu didn't immediately return to school. Instead, he directly ran towards the suburbs. Because he was cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, Tan Xiu's physique had been reborn and reborn. Even if he didn't cultivate any combat skills or agility skills, his speed was still far from what an ordinary person could compare with. Since he had already decided to cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, Tan Xiu naturally had to make thorough preparations. The path of cultivation was nothing more than the 4 words, law, companion, wealth, and place. Law refers to the teaching method, the method. If you don't know the method, you would just blindly cultivate. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis was a divine book that the immortal world's magnates fought for. In Tan Xiu's mind were countless cultivation methods and secret manuals from the immortal world, so he naturally didn't have to worry about the cultivation method. Companion refers to fellow cultivators and fellow Taoists. The Book of Rites says, learning alone and having no friends is bound to be ignorant and ill-informed. Earth was a world in the age of chaos, so Tan Xiu was doomed to not be able to find fellow cultivators or fellow Taoists on Earth. However, cultivation had no concept of time, so Tan Xiu didn't care about companion at all. Wealth refers to having a certain financial condition, because in the initial stage of cultivation, one had to put their mind and time into cultivation to the greatest extent. Correspondingly, they didn't have much time to make money. If one didn't have a certain material foundation, it would be very difficult to cultivate. The ancients said, without wealth, one cannot cultivate the Tao. Place refers to the place of cultivation, the Tao field. Different environments, feng shui, and qi fields were different, and they had a huge impact on cultivation. Tan Xiu didn't care about the law and companion, but he had no choice but to pay attention to wealth and place. During this month, apart from spending a small amount of time on studying, Tan Xiu spent most of his time in the library. Naturally, Tan Xiu didn't stay in the library for studying, but to try to find the existence of cultivators on Earth. Moreover, he also wanted to find a suitable place for his own cultivation. Tan Xiu nearly swept through all the books in the library, but he didn't find any trace of cultivators, which made him suspect that cultivators simply didn't exist on Earth. However, after flipping through a lot of humanities, history, geography, biographies, and other books, Tan Xiu really found a place that was suspected to be a holy place for cultivation. That place wasn't in the main city, but was located in the suburbs more than 70 kilometers away from the main city. It was called Walled Hill Village. Today, Tan Xiu specifically went to Walled Hill Village to investigate whether it was really suitable for his cultivation. If Walled Hill Village was really as described in the books, then Tan Xiu planned to get a piece of land in Walled Hill Village and build a Immortal's Cave for cultivation on it. Half a day later, Tan Xiu's figure appeared on the hilltop of Walled Hill Village. At this time, Tan Xiu had already explored the entire Walled Hill Village. Looking at the numerous stars above his head that could be plucked by stretching out his hand, and bathing in the spiritual power of heaven and earth that simply didn't exist in the main city, Tan Xiu's face revealed an excited expression. Spiritual vein. There is actually a spiritual vein hidden under Walled Hill Village. A place with a spiritual vein is bound to contain heavenly treasures. I don't need to worry about the body refining liquid anymore. Standing on top of a boulder on the hilltop, Tan Xiu's heart was filled with heroic spirit. He couldn't help but face upwards and shout. Since his rebirth, Tan Xiu had always been trembling with fear and had his hands and feet tied. On one hand, it was because the spiritual power on earth was so thin that it was almost extinct. Thus, all kinds of cultivation techniques and secret skills in the immortal world were completely useless, causing Tan Xiu to be at a loss. On the other hand, it was because he inadvertently met the conditions to cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, and then his body began to uncontrollably and passively cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. If he could cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis in the immortal world, Tan Xiu would certainly be ecstatic. But cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis on earth, where spiritual power was almost extinct, made Tan Xiu want to cry but have no tears. Although cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis didn't require any heaven and earth spiritual power, the key point was that cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis was too harsh on the strength of the body. It required a lot of heavenly treasures to refine the body refining liquid to quench the body, and these heavenly treasures were all grown in places with rich spiritual power. The lack of spiritual power on earth meant that there weren't any heavenly treasures needed to refine the body refining liquid. Therefore, when Tan Xiu inadvertently started to cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, only death was waiting for him. Since he was able to find a spiritual vein like Walled Hill Village in the Shuangqing province, it meant that he would be able to find other places on earth that contained heaven and earth spiritual power. Naturally, Tan Xiu was happy. The spiritual vein seems to be under this boulder. I don't know if Walled Hill Village has an owner or not. If it has an owner, then it would be a bit troublesome. After circling around the Walled Hill Village's hilltop, Tan Xiu had already locked onto the location of the spiritual vein, and a thoughtful expression appeared on his face. According to Tan Xiu's understanding, Walled Hill Village was an unfamiliar name to most of the people in the Shuangqing province. If not for Tan Xiu having read a lot of books in the provincial library, Tan Xiu wouldn't have known that there was such a hidden paradise in the Shuangqing province. Walled Hill Village, formerly known as the Imperial City and Xiaoyang Mountain, was an ancient stronghold of the Ming dynasty. According to historical records, at the end of the Ming dynasty, when Zhang Xianzhong, the leader of the peasant uprising, and his troops entered Sichuan, he attacked this place and occupied the mountain as the king. He proclaimed himself as the emperor and designated this place as the Imperial City. Moreover, he buried the treasured weapons that he had collected from various places underground, and called it the Iron Cultivator's Tomb. The Southern Star Gate, the Peace Gate, the Heavenly Treasure Gate, the Longevity Gate, and the rest of the 18 city gates were built on the walled hill. There was also the Mysterious Li family's ancestral hall, the Splitting Sword Stone, the official's residence, the fort, the Goddess of Mercy Temple, and other ruins. Seeing that the sky was already dawn, Tan Xiu focused his mind and began to search for the heavenly treasures needed to cultivate the star's tyrannical body in the first stage of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis was divided into 4 stages: star's tyrannical body, heavenly star essence, star's essence unification, and star's transformation. The star's tyrannical body stage included chi training, skin strengthening, flesh strengthening, bone transformation, meridian transformation, marrow transformation, viscera transformation, chi and blood circulation, and 9 dan forming steps. This cultivation technique was designed by the genius of the god race who created the heavenly art of cosmic genesis based on the weak aptitude of the god race's people. He imitated the principles of the demon race's demon body and designed this cultivation technique. Each small stage of tempering one's physical strength required innumerable rare and precious materials. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis had extremely high requirements for the practitioner's physical strength. If the practitioner's physical strength wasn't up to the standard, then no matter how fast the cultivation speed of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis was, in the end, the practitioner could only end up absorbing too much star energy and explode to death. The creator of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis had repeatedly emphasized that if one wanted to cultivate the star's tyrannical body in the first stage of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, then one must prepare enough rare herbs, rare minerals, as well as the internal organs of fierce beasts, blood essence, veins, and so on to temper one's body. Chapter 27. In the classroom of Xingqing City No. 1 High School, Tan Xiu sat motionlessly in his seat with an unusually ugly expression on his face. After a night of hard work, although Tan Xiu had found more than 10 kinds of rare herbs and all the rare minerals needed to refine the body-tempering liquid, he couldn't even find the shadow of a fierce beast. Therefore, the whereabouts of the internal organs and blood essence of the fierce beasts were naturally also unknown. Could it be that because of the thin spiritual qi of heaven and earth, the fierce beasts on earth have already become extinct? Or is it simply impossible for fierce beasts to appear on earth? A possibility suddenly emerged in Tan Xiu's heart, and his face also became deathly pale. Although it was still possible to refine the body-tempering liquid without the internal organs, blood essence, and tendons of the fierce beasts, the effect of the body-tempering liquid would be greatly reduced. Therefore, the risk of Tan Xiu practicing the heavenly art of cosmic genesis would increase exponentially. Moreover, now that he couldn't find the fierce beasts, who knew if there would be a day when he would lack rare herbs or rare minerals? If that happened, wouldn't it be completely impossible for him to practice the heavenly art of cosmic genesis? No, I must find a substitute for the body-tempering liquid, or find a substitute for the raw materials for the body-tempering liquid. The immortal world has its advantages, and Earth also has its advantages. The technology on Earth is so advanced, I don't believe that I can't solve the problem of practicing the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Slowly, a determined light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. The expression on his face also slowly relaxed, and finally revealed a confident smile. Tan Xiu, Miss Han wants you to go to the big office of the grade. While Tan Xiu was deep in thought, a clear and melodious voice suddenly rang in his ear. Tan Xiu raised his head and found that Cheng Yannan had unknowingly stood beside his seat. The other party was looking at him with a complicated expression. Thank you for informing me, I will go immediately. Tan Xiu already vaguely understood what was going on. He nodded at Cheng Yannan, then got up and left his seat. Looking at Tan Xiu's thin back, Cheng Yannan's lips squirmed, and she wanted to say something but hesitated. Cheng Yannan had just come out of the grade office. She naturally knew why Miss Han had called Tan Xiu to the office. A long time after Tan Xiu's figure disappeared, Cheng Yannan murmured softly, "It doesn't matter if the results are a little worse. At most, I'll be ridiculed and ridiculed. It's not like I'll lose any flesh. Why did I choose to cheat?" Cheng Yannan was really frightened by the scene she saw just now. Not only were all the teachers of the grade 3 group gathered in the office, but the principal, the vice principal, and several people from the academic affairs office were also in the office. They gathered together just to find out whether Tan Xiu cheated in this monthly test or not. Almost all the teachers in the office believed that Tan Xiu cheated in this monthly test because Tan Xiu's monthly test results were too exaggerated. The total score was 750 points, and Tan Xiu unexpectedly scored 712 points. Even if it was Yang Jian, who was the consecutive first place in the grade's monthly test, obtaining such a score would be suspicious, let alone Tan Xiu, who was the last in the grade 3. Only the teacher in charge of class 10, Han Qinggu, firmly believed that Tan Xiu did not cheat in the test. Miss Han did not hesitate to argue with the group of teachers headed by Hu Qiusheng, and even her eyes were red. Tan Xiu, Tan Xiu, it doesn't matter if you cheat, but you've made Miss Han miserable. Cheng Yannan curled her lips, and in her heart, she was extremely disappointed with Tan Xiu. But thinking about it, during the month when Tan Xiu was in class 10, he spent most of his time sitting in the classroom in a daze. Thinking about all kinds of rumors about Tan Xiu, the kind-hearted Cheng Yannan did not criticize or complain about Tan Xiu. When Tan Xiu arrived at the grade group office, he happened to hear Hu Qiusheng's excited roar. "I can guarantee that Tan Xiu definitely cheated in this monthly test. If he didn't cheat, I will resign from one middle school." Perhaps shocked by Hu Qiusheng's imposing manner, after Hu Qiusheng's words, the office fell into a dead silence. Even Han Qinggu, who had been arguing with Hu Qiusheng, was frightened by Hu Qiusheng's words and did not speak for a long time. "Qiu Lohu, are you sure you mean what you said? If I can prove that I didn't cheat in the monthly test, will you really resign from one middle school?" Just when Hu Qiusheng thought that he had won the final victory, a hearty voice sounded at the door of the classroom, and then Tan Xiu pushed the door open and entered. You! How dare you! You have no respect for your elders, and you don't know how to respect your teachers at all. How could such a person get a high score in the test? Tan Xiu's words, "Qiu Lohu," made Hu Qiusheng furious. He jumped up from his chair, pointed at Tan Xiu's nose and scolded, "If you can prove that you didn't cheat in this test, I, Hu Qiusheng, will change my surname to yours." "Qiu Lohu, I'm really sorry, but I can't agree to your request. If you want to change your surname to mine, you have to ask for my father's permission." Seeing Hu Qiusheng's flustered and exasperated look, Tan Xiu was amused. Tan Xiu's principle of life was, "If people respect me, I will respect them 10 times, if people destroy me, I will take 3 times. When Hu Qiusheng repeatedly humiliated Tan Xiu and his mother, and even tried to drive Tan Xiu out of the school, the teacher-student relationship between Tan Xiu and Hu Qiusheng had ended. Naturally, he could not have the slightest bit of respect for Hu Qiusheng, and his words were naturally unscrupulous. Tan Xiu's words made everyone in the office burst out laughing, but when they saw Hu Qiusheng's fiery eyes, they had to resist the urge to burst out laughing. "Tang Xiu, shut up. The reason why we called you to the office today is to give you a chance to prove your innocence. If you continue to talk nonsense like this, then get the hell out of here." Seeing that Hu Qiusheng was about to explode and hurt someone, Han Qinggu hurriedly shouted at Tang Xiu to stop. "Miss Han, I'm sorry, I was impulsive just now." In the face of Han Qinggu's scolding, Tan Xiu did not have the slightest dissatisfaction in his heart. Instead, he was grateful. He bowed respectfully to Han Qinggu. When everyone in the office saw that Tan Xiu was unruly and lawless, they all frowned, and their impression of Tan Xiu was extremely bad. Suddenly seeing that Tan Xiu was so submissive and respectful to Han Qinggu, they could not help but show a thoughtful look on their faces. At the same time, they could not help but look at Tan Xiu a few more times. It was also at this time that everyone realized that although Tang Xiu's clothes were a bit plain, they were unusually clean and tidy. His short black hair made him look particularly spirited. Coupled with his pair of bright and piercing eyes, coupled with his high nose bridge, thin lips, and tall stature, he gave off a kind of handsome and compelling feeling. Everyone was captivated by the invisible elegance and confidence that Tan Xiu exuded. Then, thinking of Hu Qiusheng's usual behavior and character, everyone instantly forgave Tan Xiu for losing his composure just now. They no longer blamed Tan Xiu for his words just now. Instead, they felt that it was Hu Qiusheng who forced Tan Xiu into a dead end, causing Tan Xiu to speak without thinking. Wei Zhentai stared at Tan Xiu for a moment and said in a deep voice, "Tan Xiu, because your monthly test results this time are too abnormal, the school does not know how to deal with your results. Miss Han insists that your results are real and valid, and she begs us to give you a chance to prove yourself. Please cherish this opportunity." "Thank you, Principal. I will cherish this opportunity," Tan Xiu replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. "Tan Xiu, if you admit that you cheated now, we can still forgive you. If you can't finish the test later and your true colors are revealed, not only will you feel bad, but Miss Han will also suffer with you. Don't be so stubborn, Tang Xiu. It's been a year and a half. Do you think we don't know what kind of situation you're in now? Even if you want to cheat, please be more serious and get a more reliable result." do you think we're idiots by directly getting a full score? Tan Xiu, if you confess, you will be lenient. Even if you cheat, we can understand your feelings. If you are found cheating and dare not admit it, then it is a moral problem. As soon as Tan Xiu finished his words, several teachers in the office could not help but persuade Tan Xiu at the same time. Most of these people were Tan Xiu's teachers in high school for the past 3 years. Their prejudice against Tan Xiu was deeply rooted. Since they only had results in their hearts, they were not so much persuading Tan Xiu, but rather mocking and warning Tan Xiu. Hu Qiusheng did not say anything. He just snorted coldly and crossed his arms to watch Tan Xiu make a fool of himself. Principal Wei, can we start? Tan Xiu did not pay attention to the other teachers and asked indifferently. Since Tan Xiu is ready, everyone can take out the test questions. Wei Zhentai nodded in satisfaction as he saw Tang Xiu's reaction. Even if Emtai collapses in front of him, his expression wouldn't change and his eyes wouldn't blink. Under Wei Zhentai's call, the third-year team leader, Xia Mingjie, took out 4 prepared test papers and handed them to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu, if you can finish this test paper within 4 hours this morning and pass, the school will recognize your results for this monthly test. Under Tan Xiu's questioning gaze, Xia Mingjie explained loudly. If I finish this set of test papers within the specified time and get good results, what if someone still suspects me of cheating? After Tan Xiu took the test paper, he did not answer it immediately. Instead, he glanced at Hu Qiusheng and asked meaningfully. Tan Xiu's words made Hu Qiusheng's face turn red. Even Xia Mingjie could not help but cough. This set of test papers was compiled by a teacher from Jinghua University's affiliated high school. You only arrived at our school 10 minutes before you entered the office. Other than the teacher from Jinghua University's affiliated high school, no one else has seen this set of test papers. We originally planned to use this set of test papers for next month's exam. But it was a spur-of-the-moment idea to use it to test you. It was Teacher Han who persistently begged me, so I was willing to let you have a look at this set of sky-high priced test papers first. Student Tang Xiu, I hope you won't let us down. Seeing that Tan Xiu and Hu Qiusheng could not tolerate each other, Wei Zhentai smiled bitterly in his heart. In order to avoid another dispute, he had to speak up. Chapter 28. When Hu Qiusheng heard Tan Xiu's ridiculing words, he originally wanted to jump out and scold Tan Xiu. However, when Wei Zhentai stood out, Hu Qiusheng had no choice but to suppress his anger and could only stand aside and sulk. After Tan Xiu vented out the anger in his heart, he did not go too far and began to bury his head in answering the questions. Despite being watched by more than 30 teachers, Tan Xiu did not feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, he wrote one answer after another on the test paper smoothly. One must know that when Tan Xiu was teaching disciples or refining pills in the immortal world, he would be watched by tens of thousands of pairs of eyes almost every time. Tan Xiu could also turn a blind eye to them and do his own things calmly, not to mention there were only 30 pairs of eyes focused on him. Tan Xiu could ignore the existence of more than 30 teachers in the office, but the 30 teachers in the office could not ignore Tan Xiu. Seeing that Tan Xiu did not use his brain and completed more than half of the test questions in just a moment, the teachers in the office could not help but look at each other and frown. Humph, you only know how to play to the gallery. These questions are even difficult for our teachers to answer easily, but you can actually finish them so quickly. Isn't this nonsense? Hu Qiusheng had long been dissatisfied with Tan Xiu's words and actions. At this time, seeing that Tan Xiu was answering the questions so quickly, he could not help but sneer at him. Teacher Hu, please don't affect Tan Xiu's answer, otherwise we will have to ask you to leave. Almost as soon as Hu Qiusheng's voice fell, Han Qinggu reminded him mercilessly. Seeing that Han Qinggu was angry, the other teachers in the office who had the same feeling as Hu Qiusheng had no choice but to swallow back the words that were about to come out of their mouths and could only silently watch Tang Xiu answering the questions. Hu Qiusheng was infuriated by Han Qingwu's words. If it was another teacher who dared to speak to him like this, he would have already flown into a rage. However, in the face of Han Qinggu, Hu Qiusheng could only endure it. After a period of contact, Hu Qiusheng had already figured out Han Qinggu's temper. He knew that Han Qinggu was not the kind of person who favored personal interests, but a righteous and kind person. Moreover, she was also very principled. This made him not afraid to provoke Han Qinggu. However, Hu Qiusheng knew when to stop. After seeing that Han Qinggu was really angry, he tactfully stopped provoking her. Instead, he sneered in his heart, waiting to see Tan Xiu and Han Qinggu make a fool of themselves. After more than 20 minutes, Tan Xiu had already finished the math paper. Although they knew that Tan Xiu's answering speed in the monthly test was also this fast, after witnessing Tan Xiu finish a set of difficult math papers in half an hour, the teachers of the grade 12 group were still shocked by Tan Xiu's answering speed. Almost as soon as Tan Xiu threw the math paper to the side, Hu Qiusheng snatched the math paper. After Hu Qiusheng took the paper, the corner of his mouth slightly raised, and he was ready to blurt out the sarcastic words that he had long prepared. However, when Hu Qiusheng clearly saw the answers to the first 3 multiple-choice questions, he felt as if there was a fishbone stuck in his throat, and his face was also swollen red. After getting the paper, Hu Qiusheng had done the first 3 multiple-choice questions in the math paper. He found that these 3 multiple-choice questions were not only difficult, but also extremely tempting. As long as one was a little careless or did not have a solid grasp of the knowledge, it was possible to make a mistake. Therefore, Hu Qiusheng felt that Tan Xiu would most likely get the first 3 questions wrong. Unexpectedly, after getting Tan Xiu's completed paper, he found that Tan Xiu actually got all the first 3 questions correct. Thinking about how it took him 5 minutes to finish the first 3 questions, and he accidentally got 1 question wrong, but Tan Xiu answered all the questions in almost a few seconds, Hu Qiusheng naturally did not believe it. The 4th question, correct. The 5th question, correct. When Hu Qiusheng finished reading the last question and found that all the answers were exactly the same as the standard answers, he felt as if he was struck by lightning, and his face became extremely pale. Wei Zhentai continuously called out to Hu Qiusheng several times, but did not get a response. He was puzzled, and took the paper from Hu Qiusheng's hands to check. Although Wei Zhentai was the principal, he had been in the administrative work for many years. Naturally, he could not be like Hu Qiusheng, who could tell whether the answers were correct or not just by looking at the paper. However, this did not prevent him from judging whether Tan Xiu answered correctly or not, because all the standard answers were in his hands. 10 minutes later, Wei Zhentai carefully checked Tan Xiu's mathematics paper from beginning to end. Then, he finally knew why Hu Qiusheng was in a daze after reading Tan Xiu's answer. At this time, Wei Zhentai also had mixed feelings in his heart. He looked at Tan Xiu with gratification, guilt, and even more passion. Tan Xiu's mathematics paper answers are all correct, he got a full score in the mathematics test. Seeing that the other teachers in the 3rd-year group were all looking at him with questioning eyes, Wei Zhentai lowered his voice and said. After saying this, Wei Zhentai suddenly felt a lot older, and he handed the paper to the teacher next to him. Almost at the same time that Wei Zhentai finished reading the mathematics paper, Tan Xiu also finished the comprehensive science paper. Naturally, everyone fought over it, wanting to be the first to see it. With a full score in the mathematics paper as a foundation, the people in the office were also full of expectations for Tan Xiu's comprehensive science paper. Soon, Tan Xiu's comprehensive science paper was also marked. Again, all the questions were correct, and Tan Xiu got a full score again. Then, it was the English paper. Excluding the listening part, it got a full score again. Finally, it was the Chinese paper. Excluding the composition part, it got a full score again. Because the English paper didn't need to do the listening part, and the Chinese paper didn't need to do the composition part, only an hour and 10 minutes had passed when Tan Xiu finished 4 sets of papers. This amount of time was not even enough for the others to finish a set of papers. Silence. Silence. There was dead silence. After marking all of Tan Xiu's test questions, the teachers in the 3rd-year group all fell into silence. These teachers seemed to have been immobilized, standing motionless in the same place with a pondering look on their faces. Hu Qiusheng suddenly seemed to have aged by several decades. His face no longer had the arrogant and ferocious look from before, but had a look of absent-mindedness. Only Han Qinggu had a face of excitement. Although Han Qinggu chose to trust Tan Xiu, before Tan Xiu's test results came out, her heart was still perturbed. Especially when she saw the speed at which Tan Xiu answered the questions, her heart was in her throat, and she didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Now that she saw that Tan Xiu didn't let her down at all and handed in such an answer that exceeded her expectations, Han Qinggu was not only excited, but also gratified. Principal Wei, there shouldn't be any possibility of Tan Xiu cheating in his test results this time, right? Han Qinggu found that everyone in the office fell into silence after looking at Tan Xiu's test papers. The atmosphere in the office became unusually strange. Han Qinggu was silent for a long time, and then she asked carefully. The test papers were delivered to my office after you all went to work. The test for Tan Xiu was also an impromptu idea. I even opened the test papers in front of you all. How could Tan Xiu cheat? Wei Zhentai's loud voice sounded in the office, and it could be considered as confirming Tan Xiu's test results this time. Then Tan Xiu's monthly test results should also be valid, right? Han Qinggu struck while the iron was hot and asked. The set of test papers that Tan Xiu has just done is at least 2 levels more difficult than the monthly test papers. Since Tan Xiu can get a full score in this test, then it's not surprising that Tan Xiu got 712 points in the monthly test. Wei Zhentai naturally knew Han Qinggu's worries, and he smiled and nodded. In that case, should the bet between Teacher Hu and Miss Han be fulfilled? In addition, Teacher Hu just said that if I didn't cheat in the monthly test, he would resign from one middle school. I don't know if Teacher Hu's words are valid. Just as Wei Zhentai was about to comfort and praise Tan Xiu to encourage Tan Xiu to make persistent efforts, Tan Xiu's clear voice suddenly sounded in the office. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, everyone in the office felt a thump in their hearts, and they subconsciously focused their eyes on Hu Qiusheng. It was just that after Hu Qiusheng finished reading Tan Xiu's math test answers, he seemed to have lost his soul. His eyes were absent-minded as he sat on his seat in a daze and entered a state of oblivion. He didn't even know what the people in the office were saying or doing. Tang Xiu, although Teacher Hu's attitude toward you was a bit extreme, but it was also because he was resentful that you didn't meet his expectations. Now that Teacher Hu knows that he misunderstood you, he must be feeling very uncomfortable inside. Can you not make things difficult for him anymore? Han Qinggu looked at the dazed Hu Qiusheng, and she couldn't bear it, so she subconsciously pleaded for Hu Qiusheng. Everyone in the office obviously didn't expect Han Qinggu to plead for Hu Qiusheng, and she was the first one to speak up for Hu Qiusheng. For a moment, they looked at Han Qinggu with respect and admiration. Before today, Hu Qiusheng had been targeting Han Qinggu, and from time to time, he would provoke Han Qinggu. Everyone in the office asked themselves, if they were in Han Qinggu's shoes, they would never be able to do this. I'll listen to Miss Han. If the principal and teachers have nothing else to say, I'll go back to the classroom first. The reason why Tan Xiu said that on purpose after the test was to remind Hu Qiusheng that he hadn't forgotten about the conflict between him and Hu Qiusheng. He wanted to stop Hu Qiusheng from transferring him back to class 5 again. He didn't really want to kick him when he was down. Since he had achieved his goal, and Han Qinggu pleaded for Hu Qiusheng, Tan Xiu was happy to do Han Qinggu a favor at little cost. Not only did he help Han Qinggu, he also showed his generosity. Just as Tan Xiu was about to step out of the office, Wei Zhentai suddenly asked, "Student Tan Xiu, can I ask you a question? Did your grades improve in the past month, or have they never dropped?" "Principal, is this question very important?" Tan Xiu stopped in his tracks and said with a faint smile, "Principal, instead of paying attention to this question, why don't you care about the students with average grades? After all, there are nearly 1,000 high school students every year, but only a few dozen of them can get into key universities and famous universities. What do you think, Principal?" After saying that, Tan Xiu turned around and left, not giving Wei Zhentai any chance to speak. In the office, after a long period of silence, Wei Zhentai let out a sigh. His originally straight back suddenly bent, and a few traces of regret appeared on his face. The other teachers also had thoughtful expressions on their faces. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.